How's it going over there?
Very good. Very good, man. I am in
Look,
Mount Maunganui.
Mount Maunganui.
Mount Maunganui in
Mount Maunganui. That sounds like I might be in New Zealand, bro.
it is in New Zealand. Where yeah, we've actually had a ton of rain today. I woke up to
Oh, yeah.
rain on the roof and it was supposed to be a terrible day. It's turned into a nice beach day. In fact, I've got sunburn.
Was it a plank sunburn?
No, I haven't done my plank yet today.
I haven't done my plank today yet either, actually. So, and look, what we are on. I have to thank you because we are on day 30 of a 31-day planking challenge, and I certainly wouldn't have I wouldn't have got nearly as far in my planking without your invitation and this fantastic little WhatsApp group that you just wake up in the morning to all these little planking puns and little like time updates and even admitting like I didn't do a plank today. I need to yellow card myself. That was incredible, actually getting people to yellow card themselves. It's beautiful.
It's
Um,
pretty cool, eh?
yeah.
And it ebbs and flows. I noticed that, like, I wouldn't have done a plank every single day if I didn't have just people to check in with.
No, it's ridiculous. Well, I'm also thinking like what to do now, what to do next. So um, I'm not sure about you if anything's come to your mind, but one for me is the horse stance. The horse stance is a really powerful qigong and tai chi pose, and it's the one where you kind of like in a squat position and you hold a squat position with your arms out like this. This is the horse pose, and it's
Fuck,
like
that
one of
sounds hard.
the hardest Shaolin monk poses that they use for. Look, obviously it's not the hardest, but it's one of the early, one of the early Shaolin monk practices or poses that they teach you for practice and to really like not shaking. And then as you get more advanced, they balance bowls on your legs. So you really have to hold it, otherwise you spill it everywhere.
Oh
So
shit.
I don't know. What do you think? A horse monk,
I'm interested. Like, do
or
you,
push-ups?
at what point does it get hard, the horse pose? Like, I think I could
But
hold that for 30 seconds.
yeah, it's the same. I think it would be the same rule as the plank. Just each day make it a little longer than the day before, or make it longer than the day before. And so, yeah, you start off with 30 seconds, like, oh, that's not too bad. And then you
Mm,
get to like a minute and a half, 3 minutes. 3 minutes is like, God.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like the more you look at the timer, the slower it goes. So it could actually be a beautiful practice in um, time travel. Actually, not time travel, but time warp.
Interesting. What I
Mm.
really like about the plank is that it's mental. Like, mm, uh, it's mental, it's non-exclusionary. Like some of the
Mm.
people in our
Anywhere can
crew
go.
are, yeah, like some of the people in our crew don't want to do push-ups because they just haven't developed those muscles. And that's like, all right, but planks you can start anytime. Um, and the other part to it is that uh, it's, uh, I really like this. Mm, that you can like have different people giving different kind of versions or different styles of it, or like that you can kind of rope people into it, that it's easy enough that you can rope people into it. So I'm interested in horse.
Well, that's what I was thinking about the horse as well, because the horse sounds kind of like play like enjoyable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
playful.
let's just horsey around a little bit. Um, but I also wanted to thank you for entertaining this idea that I've had for the past few months now around um, doing like long form podcasts, or at least
Mm,
exploring this as a format. Uh, Over the past few months, I've been consuming quite a lot of Joe Rogan, and I found myself feeling quite envious at him being able to create time and space for these long conversations with people.
yeah,
And well, it wouldn't actually be that hard to do that either. So here we are. So
yeah.
a bit of a long talk, and we're gonna try and shoot for 3 hours. Let's see how we go.
Let's see. Yeah. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? And I mean, we get to talk for 3 hours. I think that's the main point of it is like,
Totally,
how
yeah.
how often it lines up with what we're doing with this reserving time, right? It's like in our day-to-day busy lives, how often do you get to sit down and talk with a buddy for 3 hours?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in my life. Um,
No, it it happens when I'm dating.
mm,
And then I find, you have these like long periods of extended time with one person. But even
mhm.
then, like just talking for 3 hours at each other straight, that, I think you'd probably normally call that an argument rather than a conversation. But but yeah, actually the last time I was able to have that with close friends, it's been a while, and I think that's because we find ourselves in these situations where, we catch up with multiple friends at a time, and you might get, 5 or 10 minutes of like really quality chat here, and then, something else comes in, and that it kind of free flows a bit more. But increasingly, I'm really valuing the yeah, the one-on-one time and being able to go deep with someone. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise, dude. It's also that I think it's easy when you're dating, say, to set that time aside. Like I've been on 6 hour dates. I've been on a 3 day date,
Yeah.
and that just like it starts as one thing, and then you go, okay, I want to create time for this, and you actually do
Mm.
that when it's something outside of you. Um, I'm curious as to why it seems so hard for so many people to like treat themselves as that person, to like separate themselves and go, I'm going to create time and space for myself as a, like almost thinking about yourself as a separate person or thinking about your future self as a separate person.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fascinating point. I think there's a few things I've been exploring as part of a self-love practice this year, and one of them has actually been going slow and
Mm.
going by my own pace a little bit, which I actually came across in the Jung Pueblo book. I think it's just called How to Love, and yeah, he just makes the argument that actually going at your own speed and not going at anyone else's speed is a really important self-love practice. And um, I suspect that not making the time to be curious about yourself is partially to do with that. I think, it's like we're not really practiced at loving ourselves, and at least, when I first said, oh, love yourself, it all felt a bit woo woo wah wah, and um not very practical. But actually, just making time for yourself and making time for the things at your pace makes so much more sense. So again, I think this is a practice of that. Um, and I don't know about you, but I've always been a pretty curious kind of character. I guess, curious on both sides, curious in the way that I like to move through the world, and potentially curious for those looking on the outside in. But I think that's also one of the really beautiful things about when you first start dating someone, right? Like there's just so much curiosity about this person that's sitting across from you. And it's a shame that we kind of overemphasize our curiosity for dating and romantic partners and underestimate or under allocate curiosity to all other walks of life, whether it's yourself, whether it's your other relationships. Yeah. So I think as a practice, curiosity is brilliant. And I don't know about you, but some of the most successful, longest standing relationships, like particularly romantic ones, are the couples that are still curious about each other.
Yeah. 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 I've noticed that in my life too. And I also think that we make this assumption, or at least I make this assumption about myself, that I know what's going on, you know? And then the practice of like journaling
Mm,
is really interesting because what I think I will write and what I actually write are sometimes quite different things. And once I write it down, I get to have a dialogue back and forth. Like um, you see a lot of books, a lot of Stoic books, a lot of books in different cultures, going a long way back, are written in dialogue form. They're often like conversations between people.
mm,
And we don't usually get that dialogue with ourselves. Um,
mm,
and this is kind of connected to this idea that I was thinking about today, which is that doing work, whatever it is very different to intellectualizing doing the work. So,
Hmm.
like, if we think about, I don't know, making time for yourself to go at your own pace, actually making time for that is okay. On this day, I'm going to set this time aside to do this thing for myself, right? Or after this meeting, I'm going to schedule half an hour to like decompress from the meeting and write my notes, whatever it is. But then you and I can intellectualize what it means to like set time aside for ourselves. And they're just different activities. And I think we conflate those two things, you know?
Yeah, totally. Just going back to your journaling practice, how have you found your conversation with yourself change as you put it on paper? And then like how does that change the way you communicate with yourself internally as well?
Um, the writing it down, uh, I noticed a couple of things. I noticed that writing it down, I will be conscious of what I'm writing, and I'm also conscious that somebody else may read that. And
Mm,
then I realize that what I'm writing is potentially private thoughts, and I get to actively say, "Hey, no, it's okay. I can write whatever I want. This is just a dialogue with me." And that allows me to actually like actively go into those thoughts and write whatever it is that's coming up. Whereas I think that a lot of this stuff, for me at least, happens so quickly that I don't have the pause to go like, oh no, I want to do it in this way. It's not intentional.
mm,
Because the thoughts happen so quickly that unless I have to slow down to like put the words down, or I'll write a word and go, oh no, that's not actually what I mean, and cross it out and write something else.
mm.
Like I get to have this slow conversation with myself, which is not the. Do you get this? Do you have like the thoughts running past and just like a train? How do you experience it?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think there's actually a good friend's kind of described it as um, your internal dialogue is a slightly unmanageable advisory board made up of about 14 characters. And I'd probably add probably that many creatures as well. So in terms of internal dialogue, there's quite a lot going on, and maybe I feel a little insane admitting that in this setting. But yeah, I mean, for me, I've my practice of slowing down the internal dialogue largely lately has been around this idea of daydreaming, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like adjacent to meditation. Um, and actually, like I don't want to misattribute this, but it was either Alan Watts or Alan Watts talking about G.K. Chesterton, and the quote was, "Every day you should get out of your mind so that you can come to your senses."
Hmm. Yeah.
And so he was describing, meditative practices, but very much the thing of just getting out of your like your thinking mind and get into like your body or get into dance or get into any other type of minds that come to your senses. And this practice of daydreaming has definitely been that for me. And I find that things slow down and there's a very different stream of consciousness that becomes available to me. And there's some pretty consistent threads. And actually, one of them is that I was shocked about was this idea of reverence. I find myself in kind of this just state of reverence and deep gratitude and appreciation in my daydreams quite a lot, and that feels like a really worthwhile space and quality to continue to cultivate. Um,
Hmm.
because it's like it's gratitude's actually one of those practices. It does take a bit of practice to keep coming back to it. Um, and then I overheard another story recently about self dialogue, and it had to do with tennis playing or padel or whatever. And this one guy not being very good, and his friend pulled him over and said, "Hey, look, every time you miss a shot, rather than saying, you're terrible at this, reframe it as, you're better than this." And that
Hmm.
within like half an hour, this guy's game had completely changed because his internal dialogue had just shifted from, ah, man, no, what a terrible shot. I can't believe I missed it, to, that's okay. That shot's fine. You're better than this. And automatically that has a slower um, uh, pace to it as well, but it lands a lot differently as well. And being able to apply that to yourself, I mean, wow, what an incredible practice. So I've
Yeah,
never played padel, but I kind of want to go do that just to practice that.
I'm down. We got to pick a location though. We got to pick a location that we're both going to be in
Yeah. Well, that will definitely happen at some point.
at some stage. Um, it is a really good point though. It's the self coach. Like I think a lot of things we can talk about in all sorts of language. Um,
Mm.
and it's like the self coach, the self parent. It's like that tiny reframe can uh, just reinforce the idea because you're always. I was thinking about this yesterday that we're not ever. It doesn't matter what you do, you are always going to be evolving. And if you put
Uh-huh.
yourself in environments where like you're hearing stories like this one and like picking up little habits, then that thing is going to continue to percolate in your mind and you'll adapt to that. Likewise, if you go and sit in a room by yourself, whatever's in your mind, you will still evolve with that, whatever's echoing around in your mind. It's just like whatever information diet you feed yourself, you're going to change in that way anyway. Um,
Well, there's that part of it, but I was actually just coming across some research on like quantum fields and how
hmm,
your your kind of reality is also influenced a lot by the people around you, and if they see potentiality in you or if they see kind of, you know, the same old, and somehow that creates a field around you in a way to either reiterate that or actually, you know, see the continued possibility. And again, particularly in long-standing romantic relationships, that's something that can have such a profound effect throughout an entire lifetime. I think we've all seen partnerships where they've lost seeing the potential in each other, and
yeah,
there's kind of like a staleness to the relationship. And then there's others where there's just still see so much potential in each other and supporting each other in that capacity. It's just one of the most beautiful things to see. So
yeah,
something about
interesting.
that quantum field around us as well is fascinating, and certainly reiterates be very mindful of the five people that you keep close to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, there's the quantum aspect to it, but there's also the just like um, the human or like the observable aspect to it, which is that like if you spend a lot of time around people who are uncomfortable with you changing, they're going to reinforce a person that you used to be. And if you say, "Oh no, sorry, I don't like singing that song anymore. I like singing this other song," they'll go, "No, no, 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 no. That's not who you are." And if you go and meet some new people and you go, "Oh, I like singing this song," they're not going to bat an eye. They're like, "Oh, cool." Like they have no idea. I like this idea that like if you put yourself in a new environment, you can easily evolve without all of the without having to also evolve everybody else's story about you.
Yeah, it's very easy to draw new boundaries. And I don't know about you, but I think that's probably part of the reason I've enjoyed living in multiple places now. It's been because each time you get to kind of re-explore a part of your emerging self in a way. And
Mm,
there's this guy out on the west coast of the States called Stuart Brand. And one of the things he talks about is, you know, every year, no, sorry, every decade, just reinvent yourself. And he just, you know, starts from scratch again and does it all over. And again, I think, you know, you probably get so far with that, but if you're within the same relationships the whole time, like how much can you actually shift? But if you move country, and if you move to a country with a different language, or, you know, I mean, we're both in Portugal right now, but I never thought I'd never thought I'd live in Portugal, even though this is clearly not Portugal right now. But yeah, you really rediscover yourself based on the relationships that emerge as you land. And
yeah.
I'm actually curious, like, how mindful have you been with the people that you connect with when you move to a new place, or is it just kind of happenstance?
Good question. Um, I got two answers to this. The first is that I went through a real learning curve. I moved to Myanmar when I was 22,
Really?
and yeah,
How long are you in Myanmar for? This is
I lived there
great.
for a year. Yeah, I've
Firstly,
been.
how did you decide to move to Myanmar? Was it like one of those like this spot here? Just
No, no,
spin
no.
you just spin the globe?
It seems like that. No, my auntie and uncle used to live in Hong Kong. They were worked for Citibank, and then they were looking for somewhere to move, and they moved to Myanmar. And then I graduated, and I was working in California at Apple, and I was like getting to the end of my visa, and I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do with my life? And I gave myself two options. I was like, all right, I want to learn things. And I'm either going to go to New Zealand or Australia and like work for a consulting company and I'll learn a bunch of foundational skills there. Or I was talking to my auntie and uncle and they were like, why don't you move to Myanmar and like come and work for us and we'll teach you all everything that we can and we'll like put you on projects. So yeah. So I just like chose the interesting, exciting, like, I don't
Yeah.
know what this is going to be like adventure.
Yeah, no
Um,
expectation, right? Like what is your expectation of Myanmar before you arrive? Like
yeah.
probably pretty minimal, right? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely zero. And this is actually how I do most of my travel these days. Is like I will book a ticket and not think about the trip at all, and then get on the
Yeah.
plane and get excited. Like, ooh, I'm going to a new place. I wonder what this is going to be like.
We're very, very similar in that capacity. Yeah, totally.
Okay, so I moved to Myanmar and I was just like happy go lucky. I was like, I'll just move there and I'll meet a bunch of people and make a bunch of friends. That did not happen. I was, I had a girlfriend in California. I was just like miserable for the first 3 months I was there. I didn't know anyone. I didn't want to go out. I was just like sad. Um, and I realized that when you go to a new place or like when you're like really wanting to make an effort with people, it just takes time. You're not going to like be the life of the party and like all of a sudden be invited to all of these things. Whatever you get invited to, just say yes. If you're in a new place,
Mm,
just say yes. Go and because the only time that you're actually going to meet people is when you're out of the house. If you're in the house, you're um, either talking to people that you already know or you're spending time alone. And both of those things are not expanding your horizons, right? So from moving there, I realized that at the start of moving somewhere, I just need to get out. I just need to say yes. And
mm,
now this is 10 years later, basically. Um, and I've discovered two things. I've discovered that I am much better at understanding who I click with like that.
mm,
Um, and not feeling obligated to be friends with people who I don't click with and also who don't necessarily click with me. Um, like one of my favorite questions to ask a new person is, can you make a noise that you've never made before? And a lot of people go like, what the fuck?
What? Good litmus test,
Excuse
man.
me? Exactly. A lot of people are just like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy. He's weird. And
I'm trying to think.
that's
I'm trying to remember
great.
if you asked me that question or not. But I feel like you've definitely asked it around me, and it's like resulted in some good responses.
I have these small litmus tests where I'm like, look, if you're not going to be down with like a random question like that, or even like wearing nail polish, if somebody doesn't want to be my friend because I'm wearing nail polish, so what? Like, we probably wouldn't get along that much.
Tell me more about this, like clicking, like when you actually click with someone.
Yeah, I don't know if I think that words are a blunt tool often to describe these feelings, but
Totally.
I don't know if you've had the same experience that when you get to know yourself more, you then um you just know when you click with someone, you have a little bit of mm, similar kind of ways of seeing the world, and I think it's very subtle. Um,
Mm,
but I think that it's hard to see in everyday life, like just because you come across so many different people. Like you
Mm,
and I met in a common place, which is actually the second, I got a little bit sidetracked, but the second point to this, like meeting people and how I know if I will click with people is that if you're out in the world and you're seeing people, say you run into 100 people and you see them at the supermarket and at the cafe and all these different places, maybe one or two of those people like you're really going to get along with, but you've only got so much time, right? So
mm,
you probably won't have long interactions with all of these people. But then if you go to a place where everybody has a common purpose, everybody has common values, then, or if you meet through mutual friends, then you have a much higher likelihood of like meeting these people that kind of have the same worldview as you, I guess.
mm.
Um, and the analogy, I don't know who I've picked this up from, and I would like to give them credit, but I can't remember. Is that look for the watering holes. So, like, you can go
Mm,
out in the savannah and you can look for the animals, and you'll go for a long way before you find animals. But if you just like go to the watering hole, that's where all the animals are going to be. Um,
mm.
and I mean, you probably had this similar experience going to New York and going to like all of these different places. It's like you slowly find the watering holes of the people that are seeking the same things as you, that are dancing the same dances.
Yeah, and you also become better at not only finding the watering holes, but seeing the birds that are circling the watering hole. So like the precursor to the watering hole that aligns with you. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I love spending time in libraries, which unfortunately is not the best place to meet people, but I often think that, everyone else that's at a library is likely to have quite similar, uh, fundamental values as some of the things that motivate me. But again, not a great place to actually meet people.
How
Um,
did you
I've
start going to?
Oh, I know. I'll definitely. Happy to jump into the libraries piece, but still on this like clicking with someone. There's something that I've become aware of in the last couple of years, and it's this idea of remembering someone from the future. And so
Ooh,
when you remember someone, you meet someone, you go, I recognize you. I've known you from 10 years ago. We went to school together. I recognize you. Um,
yeah.
but actually, I feel like now when I really meet someone that I click with, I feel like I remember them from the future. And I actually have this with you. And like I know because our first instance, I think I just got off a plane. I just landed in Lisbon.
Yeah.
I came in for a sauna, and I think you got me after the sauna after a super long travel. And I was like, I'm about to go to bed, but nice to meet you, dude. But still, even that, without, I'm like, there's a certain quality there. And so more and more, I look definitely for that as an
Mm,
indicator of like, is this someone I really click with? And then also, I do an energy check afterwards, which
mm,
is after you spend time with someone, how do you feel afterwards? You typically charged, drained, or neutral. Um, and you could have you could meet with the same person several times and have very different feelings, but over time, you tend to get a sense of what that is, and that really has helped me better understand like who I actually click with, and that's like clicking with on more of an energetic level, in a
yeah,
sense. And
absolutely.
then like there's so many layers on which you can connect with someone: emotional, spiritual, physical, intellectual, sexual. I mean, there's so many wonderful layers. So understanding and playing with that nuance has been really beautiful over the last couple of years.
A question about this. When
Yeah.
you're doing your energy check-in, what is
Mm.
like, do you think it's universal that these feelings, like say charged and drained, where do you feel them in your body? Um, is it is it clear or is it kind of like a subtle thing?
I wouldn't say that it's um at least in my experience, it's not like in one place consistently. It's a little bit different. So like if you find yourself intellectually attracted to someone, you might have a bit of a like it's exciting up here. Like there's parts of you that there's part of your cognition system, or there's a new perspective that may have opened up that you're like, wow, holy shit, I'd never. And then that association with that person kind of makes it more exciting. Um, but then you could have someone that is maybe intellectually stimulating, but then intellectually draining at the same time as well. So then
Mm,
it's kind of like one of those things. So um, yeah, like
yeah,
I've got a couple of relationships now where there's such like incredible intellectual connection, and then it gets like, at least to me, I get a little bit overloaded because I just, there's just so much in there now. I'm like, all right, and now I need some time and space. So actually, although I get really energized by the process, at the end of it, I'm actually drained, and I need some time to go and like, all right, sit down and figure things out and stuff. So um, yeah,
yeah,
understanding
interesting.
each of ours kind of neurodivergent practices.
Yeah, seriously. I think also setting boundaries, learning how to set boundaries and realizing what this really means to set
Mm,
a boundary is super interesting. And I've noticed that coming
totally.
back to New Zealand and like setting boundaries with, say, my parents, with my dad,
Mm,
who is like a larger than life character. Like all of my friends love him. Um, he's very playful. He's very energetic. And, the other morning he got up and he was like banging around making coffee and stuff, and I came out like just really sleepy, and he starts asking me questions and making plans, and I'm like, please, can you not speak to me until I've had coffee? And he was really like, oh, he was a little bit hurt, and then
mm,
I needed to explain that, like, no, I'm like, boundaries are super healthy, and I'm setting this boundary because I really care about this relationship and I want it to succeed. I want to feel happy about this. And I'm just going
mm,
to feel grumpy if, like, I'm being bombarded with questions when I've just woken up. Um, I yeah, like I think that they're things that take a while to learn, and this is something that I've learned relatively recently, actually, through a friend, Sasha.
mm,
And the like experience, again, it comes back to the, like the intellectualizing something, like explaining this thing about boundaries, and then actually doing the practice of like setting the boundary and letting it sit and understanding that the communication of it is just as important as like the doing the thing itself. Um, yeah, but like that is an interesting energetic practice. I think
totally. Yeah. I actually introduced my younger brothers and sisters to something like this last week. Um, so I think I mentioned, but my dad and stepmom, they adopted 4 kids from Bali, and they're they're awesome. They're so much fun, and they're kind of in the later teenage years now, like 18, 19, 20. And I've over the past couple of years, I've been exploring more of like the tantric practices, and in particular, this idea of how to connect more through an open heart. So you can kind of show up in a place and have more of an open presence, and then you are both received and seen in a different capacity. So I
Mm,
actually asked if they were interested in learning a little bit, and yeah, I had a group of 8 of them that were interested, and we did this really simple practice which I got introduced to, which even brought my awareness to this level of sensitivity that we have towards each other and boundaries in a sense. And the practice was um, you would sit cross-legged in front of someone, not touching, with your eyes closed, and bring your awareness to your heart space. And then, as you bring your awareness to your heart, you expend it throughout your body. So your heart beats is really resonating through your entire body. And then what you do is you extend that kind of field or that frequency to the person sitting in front of you. And then you also feel them extending it towards you. And it's like a quiet kind of meditative practice. And then after about a minute of that, you switch partners. You do it again.
mm,
And after that, we do it again. So within 3 minutes, within no 5, 10 minutes, you'd have it with 3 or 4 different partners, and you can feel the difference. There's subtle differences between the energies of the people that you're sitting in front of, and the one of the invitations as you're doing this is, do I feel like I want to sit longer with someone, or do I want to not spend more time? Do I want to sit a little closer? Do I want to sit a little further away? And these little subtle guides that I think our bodies know much more than up here are so critical. Um, and I just imagine like having more of a, like if there was that kind of understanding in more family relationships, for instance, about the sensitivities of those that are around us, I think, you'd show up in a very different way. And you get a sense of the boundary before you need to like run it through here.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And often what you're running through here is a story that is somebody else's story. It's not actually how you feel or how they feel.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I'd assume if I saw you in the morning pre-caffeinated, I'd be like, this guy probably needs to be caffeinated before 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 any real decisions are being made. And I can say that because I'm also the same, except I don't need caffeination anymore. I just need a little bit of time and gentleness in the morning to wake up rather than like starting the day like that. I think that's because, have you heard the story that there's like two like really, there's two key types of, I mean, there's lots of types of people, but I heard this way that there's two types of people. There's early birds and there's night owls. And
Hmm.
the early birds are the ones that can get up at the crack of dawn and they're just like they're out there running. And they're also the ones
Yeah.
that kind of help do the hunting and some of the early harvesting things. Whereas night owls are the ones that stay up all night telling stories around the fire. So they're more of the storytellers, and they take a little bit more time to work through things. And I am definitely the night owl. I have had short stints of early bird, but I tell you what, I definitely feel much more naturally inclined towards the night owl side of the equation.
You've been cosplaying early bird, but
I've been cosplaying early bird. Now I need to get one of those outfits now.
yeah, I hear you. I think that yeah, I can ascribe to that. I also think that you can train yourself to be one or the other. But you can't
Yeah,
be both.
no, no, I
I
don't think so.
I have some friends who live in New York who just want to do a double shift. And I'm like, guys, you need to rest. I'm gonna, come and hang out with you for 8 hours and then I'm gonna go and spend some time by myself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think the introversion extroversion piece is super important to understand more, and um, I think that that is also another really simple thing that a lot of people overlook in terms of understanding boundaries and healthy relationships.
Mm.
I've been studying the Gottmans. They have a love lab out in the States, and they talk about this one story of, which is apparently quite common, where you'll have one partner who's out at work all day in more of an extroverted kind of frame, and then when they get home, they're actually just looking forward to introversion. Whereas their partner may have been at home all day and they've been introverted and they're looking for extroversion. So at that point where it comes home, there's that clash. And it's like, whoa. And then, you add that up over weeks and months and years, then it becomes an actual issue. But it's a very subtle thing at first that you may not necessarily be aware of as a boundary or even as something that you actually need within yourself. So yeah.
Mm. Interesting. And also it doesn't I think we have this story about extroversion and introversion is that like extroversion is somehow better for a lot of things. And
Mm,
like, well, that narrative sometimes is true. Like for some roles, say it's quite hard to do sales, especially say outbound sales if you're an introvert. Um, but I think we don't talk enough about introversion or about like the introverted qualities that are really powerful. Um, and so it, I can only speak from my personal experience, but like, uh, sometimes it's hard to say that you're, say, introverted if what is valued in your family or in your friend group or wherever you are
mm.
in your space is extroversion. Um, it's just
Yeah.
interesting.
Well,
Like,
I think
uh,
I mean, the first myth would have to be that, like a lot of people still think of themselves as one or the other. I'm either
yeah.
introverted or extroverted when, of course, we're both. And there's a healthy balance for you specifically, no one else, but there's a healthy balance of both introversion and extroversion. And also that it has seasonality. So there's
Mm.
different seasons of the year, there's different seasons of your life where it makes much more sense to be more introverted or extroverted. It's just like it's like natural. You know, these are bringing your awareness to the natural cycles of who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Do you find that you lean one way or the other?
Well, so my understanding of it is still so either end of the spectrum, it's kind of where you get energy. And I definitely get some energy in, both modes. Um, I do, I think by virtue of the extroverted piece, it feels like a bit more of a high. So I probably focus a little bit more on that rather than the introversion side of things. But of course, it's both. You couldn't have one without the other. And um, the type of high that you get, the type of energy that high that you get when through introversion is a very different feeling than the extroverted one.
Mm.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It makes sense. I'm trying to think about because I think that I get more energy from being introverted, from spending time alone.
Mm.
Um, but it definitely depends on what I'm doing. It depends on I don't want to say the quality of the activity, but like if I take myself on a hike, provided I can like motivate myself to get out there, once I'm already at a place, I feel way better about it. If I'm at home and I'm thinking
Sure,
about
sure.
going somewhere, that's a barrier to tackle. But like if I'm already out there and I'm doing something by myself, I feel super energized by that. Whereas often if I'm around people, depending on what the situation is that can take energy, it still like really gives me a buzz. Like I really enjoy it. I love seeing people. I love like interacting with
Mm.
people. But at a certain point, I need to take myself away. And when I do take myself away, I feel calm. I feel relaxed. I feel like it. I feel like I can breathe out. Um, yeah, it's interesting the different. I don't know if it's nuance, but the difference in the feelings that you have when, um, like you can have the same feelings in your body, but they can be completely different situations. Like you could go
Mm.
to a gig, say, and dance and have a lot of energy and be really riled up. Um, or you could go and have a really intellectual conversation and you could get the same kind of feeling in your body, whatever that is. Um, but they can be,
Well, I was just also thinking about the like, can you have extroverted practice? So like you could go to a place where everyone's dancing, but you're just staying in your own space. So you're actually still introverted, but you're surrounded by the externalities of it, so you can still get that charge in a sense. And then
yeah,
equally, I feel like you could have more of a you could be in a small group of people, and that could be described as extroverted, but it's still quite intimate, so it can also be a little bit more
mm.
introverted as well. So uh, I think there's
I,
definitely crossover points as well.
yeah, I also have this experience where I will feel like seeing people or like talking to people often in the morning. Um, and I'll wake up and I'll have like this time by myself and it's very quiet and often I'll have my phone off and then I turn my phone on and as soon as I know that I have that connection or as soon as I start sending texts to friends, that's when I feel like I'm being extroverted, like I'm being around people because like the channel is open communicating with people.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, actually, that's an interesting point. Like, yeah, where does like the digital piece sit in this? I hadn't actually thought of that. Like digital introversion versus digital extroversion, because um, yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we've been spending some time exploring as well. But I definitely feel like energy is sucked from me through the phone in so many ways. And even though like I love reaching out to people and connecting people through the platform, it does feel quite extractive at times. So it's like an
Yeah.
extractive extroversion.
Yeah. It's a super interesting thought experiment. It's like, well, okay, let's go pre cell phones.
Mhm.
Um or even pre landlines. In order to speak with someone, you had to be in close proximity or you wrote them a letter and it took however long it did to arrive, right? So there was no uh, actual extroversion was like in person, or there was no like channel open between you that you could automatically have someone's attention, and
Mm.
that there could be so many different kind of people coming at you. It's like it's almost like being a singer on stage and having all of these people in a crowd being able to shout things at you, and you're there with your phone and there's no limit to the number of things that can come in, right? But that's not a very human experience. Like I can imagine
Mm.
being a rock star being a very unique experience, but not a particularly human experience. Like when you're performing, like, yeah,
Mm.
there's this high that people talk about, but it's not like a one-on-one. It's not a connected experience necessarily, especially like with one other being. Um, so like if you then think about what we have, like, yeah, we can do like one-on-one communication, but it's so much more overwhelming now than it ever was. Um,
Yeah.
and I can feel that when I turn my phone on. I can like feel the difference in my body between like not being contactable. Do you have this experience with flying? I get this every time I go on a plane. It's like, oh, I'm in the sky. Nobody can see, nobody can ask anything of me, and I also can't communicate with anybody except the people that are right here, and that's quite a rare thing.
I love that space. I call it no man's land, and over the years I've actually been extending it. And the way I extend it is because I tell people in the place that I'm leaving that I leave before I do, and then so I actually am very good at creating like a
Wait,
week
say that
no
again.
man's land.
You tell people in the
So
place that you're leaving that you're leaving.
people expect that you're uncontactable in the air, and then also like if you're traveling across the world, for instance, you get a little bit of leeway on either side, right? Ah, you've taken a long, you must be jet lagged, get back to me in a few days type thing.
Yeah.
So I like to, in the place that I'm leaving, I'll say that I leave, a few days before I actually do leave.
Uh,
So then I've got a few days of that open air, which for me personally, I feel is a really important practice, just so I can even get my own thoughts in order and straight, because there is just so much noise. And perhaps it's just the way that I've set up my communication, but I think that a lot of us have fallen into the kind of traps of over communicate. Like it's a little bit like this talk in a sense that there's so much over communication and at the same time under communication. There's all these like little fragments of communication and voice notes and text messages and da da da, and yet like where's the real fucking conversation? Where's the real actual connection? Where's the bit where you actually get to the core of it? It's a little bit like when you go and you spend time with your family over the Christmas holidays,
yeah.
or over the holidays rather, you get these kind of like small little superficial glimpses. You don't really create much time to really drop in. It's like, oh, how have you been? What's the latest? And there's a bit of gossip, and then there's a bit of like, oh, did you hear this kind of thing? But then it's quite hard to actually just drop straight in. So like, so what's like the piece?
Yeah.
What's the bit that actually like supports the growth of both people in that space in a way?
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, what is the thing that you've been living that I don't know about that I should know about? And like that,
yeah.
you, I think you need both people to like.
Be
It's a
curious.
difficult thing, right? Well, you need both
Well,
people to be curious.
for me, it's presence and curious. Like when you have those two conditions, so many things kind of show up, right? Because you can be curious and not present. Like I can ask you a bunch of questions and then not be present to actually hear the answer.
Yeah,
Which I have to admit, right now I'm struggling with a little bit because I'm not used to staring into a screen for such an extended period of time.
yeah.
So I'm finding myself kind of drifting off a little bit more, whereas I am really used to having a call and then just like listening to the voice. So I wonder if
What
I
if
wonder if there's a way in which we just
maybe
like
we have a
just
solution here? Should we do?
look look at oh yeah, you go that way, I'll go this way.
Should we do? Does that work?
What's what's your better sideburn? How's that?
Be the other one. I'm not sure.
let's give it a go for five. Give it a go for 5 minutes, and we'll switch sides.
Oh,
All right.
you can't see this, but I have I have a big green plant on the counter in front of me, and it looks like a bunch of hair, a bunch of shaggy hair coming out. So I can pretend that that's you, and I'm talking to you like this.
A big shaggy ape like that. That sounds all right. I, I
Yeah.
love I love that you were so quick to adopt this as well. So I appreciate it. I have so many
uh,
people like, what do you mean? The screen's like, it's great. You get to see people's responses. I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of like it's like a false sense of connection because yeah, you see the facial responses, but there's so much that's actually missing as well. So I don't know. I
yeah.
find as soon as I take away that visual input, I can listen to the nuance of the voice a lot more.
Interesting. And you're right. There's this. So there's like in person, you can pick up all the subtleties of like facial expression and even color change in someone's complexion. And then you get a bunch of information through just like somebody's voice, the way that they breathe, all of that. But then if you take that back to texts, like there's so much information that's lost there. I think it's like levels of context for me.
Mm,
Um, like I find it quite difficult actually to text with people because I don't feel like I can, like, I guess it's that I don't want to have conversations that aren't deep, and I don't feel like I can have deep conversations via text. Um, so I find myself not wanting to text as much and prioritizing like a voice call or a voice note. Do you find that? How do you actually stay in touch with your friends? Because you have a lot of friends that are in different places.
yeah, look, I do really struggle, and some friends over the years have, um, some friends over the years, like they are very text orientated, and I just have not been good at keeping up with them, and they kind of take that quite personally.
Mm,
Um, I, there is something quite nice about the voice notes, but again, it's a really weird form of communication. It's like extended monologue, extended monologue, which which is like somehow is nice. And then on another hand, like I've got an asynchronous working relationship, and sometimes I get like 8 to 10 minute voice messages, and
mm,
after a while, I find those super overwhelming because I'm like, how do you even begin to respond to these things in an effective way?
mhm.
And again, it's kind of like over communication and under communication at the same time. So yeah, increasingly it's like how do you prioritize the in person? How do you prioritize the actual phone calls? Yeah, I do definitely prefer in person than phone call in that order, and then I'd say voice note as a bit of a distant third. Um,
Mm,
the other thing I've actually been exploring lately, more and more, which is a little out there, but so about 6 years ago, Mum had a really serious stroke, and she lost the ability to speak. She's still with us, but she can't talk. I mean, she
mm.
can say yes and no, but she's about 60% kind of accurate with the yeses and the nos. So
So she.
so so it's like one yeah, exactly. It's one very like absurd, surreal kind of like game of guess who basically.
Yeah.
Um and I was listening to this podcast recently called the telepathy tapes, and really making the
Mm,
argument that actually we all have this capacity for telepathy. And this particular set of tapes is based on a group of non-verbal autistic kids who, for the longest time, doctors and researchers just thought that they were, mentally disabled, and they couldn't communicate. And
yeah.
now it's kind of turning out that they can communicate. They just do it primarily through telepathy. And not only in addition to communicating with their loved ones and carers who are physically close to them, they have the capacity to communicate large distances with people that they've actually never met before in kind of what they describe as like a collective field of like a chat room type thing.
The
And
hill.
so the hill, you've heard of it. There you go. Right, exactly, the hill.
Yeah.
So I told mum about this and I kind of introduced her to the podcast and she kind of listened a little bit. Again, I don't know how much she actually receives with what she listens, but she kind of nodded
Mm,
along. So I've started to practice telepathy with mum more actively. So I will typically do it after or before a meditation, or after or before, or even during a daydream session. I find that those are the easiest times in which I can kind of drop into more of a state where I don't know, I could be more telepathic and just more attuned to that side of things. But what I've
mhm,
been getting back is I find actually really quite uh, like it's hard to describe, hard to put into words, but I feel quite connected at that time.
mm,
Um, and then I also, because of that, I find myself I'm more aware of my other kind of telepathic relationships. Like I might have something on the calendar for a call with someone, and I know that they're thinking about our call because I'm thinking about them. So there's like a telepathic link there. So like
interesting.
even before our call today, I was thinking about a call. I was like sending you love. So I was like, I'm wondering if Ty's getting this, and at this stage, it's just more in the form of like love and blessings. I'm thinking about you. I hope everything's okay. And it's not like remember to turn the oven off type thing. There's not that level of nuance in my, my telepathic communication yet. But um, yeah, it somehow it feels really fulfilling. It feels like a really um, embodied way
Mm,
of communicating.
interesting. I also wonder if it's like, if there are levels to this, like assuming that telepathy is a skill that you can get better at over time, right? And at the start, what you're sending is love and gratitude, or
Mm,
um, some form of that to somebody else. And you actually get quite good at that. And then you go, all right, now I'm going to introduce some nuance and I'm going to be able to, like, I don't know, tell them that I'll be home at 8:30 and that, please remember to turn the oven on, say. If the very start of that skill is not even to be telepathic or to send something, but it's
mm,
that the the act of doing it yourself creates this um, either this emotion within yourself or this field that maybe, like, I hesitate to take it into like quantum physics because this, like, there are lots of um ideas around this, right? But it's like, what can you, what is the very, very first step of this? And like, if we don't even take it to that point of it being telepathic, but like, how does it change your being? How does it change the way that you show up when you now see that person? Um, I like to think about these things in stages. Like, all right, I'm not going to be the best, I don't know, race car driver in the world. Um, the first time I drive a car, but if I go and learn how to drive a go kart, and then I learn
mhm,
how to drive this kind of car and this kind of car, like that, you slowly, slowly get better at these things, and just like just taking that first little step, like that you begin that journey that you wouldn't otherwise ever make any progress on.
mm.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
so have you come across Rupert Sheldrake?
No.
So he's an incredible researcher. Um, he works on kind of different layers of consciousness, and one of the areas that he focuses on is what he describes as the morphogenic field, and this is kind of like the collective consciousness, in a sense. And one of the experiments that he did was with uh, pet owners, actually dog owners specifically. Um,
Mm,
I think Pelagic has cats don't give a fuck. But basically, the experiment was really simple. He set up a camera at the office and he set up a camera at the front door.
yeah.
And the moment the owner decided it's time for me to go home, the dog would show up at the front door. I think
Mm,
60, 70% of the time. It wasn't 100%, but it was statistically significant. And it was kind of like the dog was telepathically connected to the owner, knowing when they would, basically the intention was. So actually, an intention is a really powerful point of telepathy, and that my intention to go home right now is somehow communicated through that bond that they have.
Hmm.
Um, it's hugely interesting piece, and I think a lot of owners relate to having some sort of a very deep connection, obviously, with their cats and their dogs, well, and any animals really. But I think when you're working across species, that the telepathic connection seems to be such an obvious one that where it's a little neglected.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so apparent.
interesting. Um, yeah, this thing about intention too, like it's a form of communication. I
Mm,
am I'm always amazed at how good we are at communicating through body language. Like that
mm,
I can go to a place where I don't speak the language and that person doesn't speak my language. We have no common language and still we can communicate. And we communicate obviously with our words and with tones and with sounds. We communicate with our bodies. I think there's, and we have organs for interpreting these different things, right? We have ears to hear sound, we have eyes to see body language. I think that there are parts of the body that we don't understand well enough that can interpret these intentional signals, or
mm,
that there is information that our body picks up on that we just like don't understand yet. Um, and not that we need to explain all of these things, but it's just that like there are things that are apparent in the world that are clear and obvious that we don't have explanations for, and there's a lot of them. So,
mm,
um, this intention thing too is I was thinking about this today, and it's related to what we have been working on. Um, Around reserving time in your year to um, do things that really matter to you and then letting everything
mm,
else filter in around it. And I was watching a interview with a guy who was talking about doing this, about setting specific intentions or setting specific time aside to do things. And the point he was making that was really interesting was that it's not just doing the thing. Like, if you and I decided that we wanted to, I don't know, ride a bicycle from the top of New Zealand to the bottom of New Zealand, and we want to do it in July, and it's going to take us 2 weeks, whatever it is.
mm,
Our brains don't care that much about the 2 weeks. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fun. Like, we'll create memories. But it's all of the time that we get to spend together thinking about the thing, planning the thing, anticipating the thing, um, that is actually the rewarding thing.
mm,
Like, it's more important to think about and have like anticipation for something that you're
mm.
really going to enjoy than the fleeting moment of actually doing the thing, because that's only going to happen once. And oh, I've got guess. And it's going to be, yeah, a set amount of time, but you can multiply that by however many times you think about it, by however many times you have meetings to plan it. If it's a really joyous thing, and if you're having fun in planning the activity.
So, how do you think you can have anticipation without expectation?
Good question. Um,
I I'm not someone that plans things too far in advance, so
mhm,
I don't spend a lot of time anticipating things. And a little bit like what you described before, I like to just go to a place and then just show up, not research too much of it, and kind of, at least for me, the insight was have no expectation. So whatever your experience of it is going to be incredible. However, as you're talking about expectation, I can feel into it. I'm like, yeah, there's a real energy towards that, that feels like it's worth cultivating. And I've definitely seen people where, they're anticipating an expedition or a trip, and it's all they can talk about for weeks, if not months. And
Yeah.
it's definitely a contagious energy. So,
Well, I noticed this with my grandmother. She passed away a few years ago.
mm.
But when she was around, she wanted to do things like she went bungee jumping when she was 93. And I think she hated the bungee jumping. I watched a video of it. She's standing on the edge of the harbor bridge, the
Oh,
Auckland Harbor
God.
Bridge. She's holding her harness, and the guy is holding her harness behind her. And he goes, "All right, 3, 2, 1," and she jumps, but she can't. She doesn't really jump, and he just throws her off the bridge.
Oh my God.
and like she the experience itself seemed like it was not that enjoyable for her, but the 6 months leading up to going bungee jumping as a 92, 93-year-old,
That's what
and
she
like
talked about.
all of the all of the time afterwards was like all amazing and joy, and like she got to tell every single person that she met that she was going to go bungee jumping with
Yeah,
her
what
son and her
currency?
granddaughter. And for what, like 30 seconds of her being scared? Like, I think that this is just an interesting
Mm,
trade-off, right? And it depends on the person. And it depends on the
mm,
stage in your life and kind of maybe what you choose to focus on, or I don't know exactly what it is, because it seems like you and I both don't plan things particularly far in advance, or like I know that I really enjoy the mystery of things, so I will
yeah,
intentionally
exactly.
plan around that.
Mm,
Um, but I think for a lot of people, it's the anticipation of the thing. Um, to take this into a slightly different example, uh, I've read that it's not you're to talk about drugs for a second. People get addicted to something like cocaine, not for the effect of the cocaine, but for the anticipation of the effect. So, the like neurons that light up in your brain light up in anticipation of something rather than the actual event. Um, and I think you can apply that to scheduling events, to like planning things in your year, is that you can think about the anticipation of the event as like as a driving force, as a motivating force, as like something that lights up in your brain as the reward every single time you think about it, rather than just the once.
yeah, no, it's a really important piece. I think that's probably one thing that, wedding invitations still do quite well, right? Because they like a lot of them are still physically posted, and you put it on your fridge, and it's kind of like an offline analog version of an invitation that you can feel some anticipation toward. Um, but yeah, we like it's a, yeah. I wonder how to cultivate a bit more of that. I mean, obviously we've spent the last couple of weeks exploring building a tool that um, supports supports an aspect of it. And I think what are we? We're at over 500 hours reserved, right?
Yeah, exactly. Um,
It's
and
pretty
some
incredible, actually, when you think about it.
It's pretty cool, and some really nice feedback as well.
Yeah.
Um, like people are really looking at, uh, yeah, looking at how they plan their years. And what I'm finding is that a lot of people have different practices, which is really nice.
Mm,
Um, one friend was telling me about how they do a year in review where they like paint a mural of
uh-huh,
what their year looked like,
uh-huh,
and then they paint a new mural of what the coming year might look like based on
uh-huh.
kind of the reflections that they've had.
Very
Um,
cool.
yeah, and then the feedback from what we've built too is like um, that it's very beautiful, and that the process is really like nice to go through, to be guided through a process like this.
Mm.
Um, are you finding that you're thinking about this continuously, or are you like setting time to try to like plan things out or try to set time aside?
For like reservations in particular.
Yeah, yeah, for reservations for any kind of like year ahead things.
Yeah, well, again, it's not something that I've been in the practice of, and yeah, I think the seed was planted, I think, in a Tim Ferriss podcast from last year,
Mm,
and I think it was just a couple of lines. It was like, yeah, I've been exploring this thing of instead of New Year's resolutions, New Year's reservations, and so I've been thinking about it, and then the way I've actually been more active with it is explaining that to someone that I love and care about and want to spend more time with in the year ahead as
mm,
a bit of an open invitation, like, hey, what should we make a reservation for? As opposed to sitting down and self-reflection, making a reservation and then sending that out. So it's been really nice going through the process of building a little tool that allows us to reflect a bit before going and doing it. Um,
mm.
yeah.
Making it a conversation with somebody. Hey, I like spending
Well,
time
that's
with you and I
that's
want to spend more time.
yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I've done it in the past, or that's how I've been thinking about it, or that's how it's kind of naturally occurred. Um, and then from that, seeing like what what kind of resonates. Um, and so I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the stage of life that I'm in at the moment. But this idea of pilgrimage keeps coming up, and kind of largely irrespective of where the pilgrimage is.
Mm,
I'm finding a lot of friends interested in joining um,
mm,
that part of it, and I suspect a large part of it is just because it's like probably one of the simplest ways we can travel through the world is through the lens of a pilgrim, which in a lot of instances involves um, walking as your main mode of transport,
mm,
um, very minimal gear that you're traveling with because you've got to carry it, and um,
mhm,
a lot of time by yourself, as well as like other people that you might meet along the way,
mm, mhm,
and yeah, I just get the sense that as so many things just feel faster and faster and louder and louder, that this pilgrimage, and again, like the pilgrimage isn't necessarily like the well-worn pilgrimage trails, but it could be anywhere, and um, yeah, there's
mm.
there's something to this. So
Do you think that
uh,
when you
more to
start,
report this time next year. Sorry.
yeah, do you think there needs to be an intention behind the pilgrimage, or do you think that it's something that you start and as you do it, things become clear? Like, yeah,
Yeah, I'd definitely
what
say a bit of
excites
both.
you
I'd
about it?
definitely say a bit
You
of
know?
both. Yeah, I mean, what excites me about it is a little bit like going back to what I was mentioning before on this idea of self-love.
Mm,
Pilgrimage just feels like a pace of travel that I haven't given myself permission to do in a while. Um, it's a little bit like Vipassana. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of or been on a silent meditation, but I first did this when I was living in the States, and for the average American, it's ridiculous because they have 12 days of holidays a year of
yeah.
or 14 days a year, and the idea of spending 10 of those days in silence is just ludicrous. And
Yeah,
and yet,
it's crazy.
yeah, right. And then yet, like the insights that emerge from that. And my intention for my first ever Vipassana was actually I'm really curious as to what's on the other side of silence. And at least for me, it was quite a playful experience. But having spoken to a few people after the Vipassana that I sat with them, a lot of them had some very like heavy intentions going in, and I could see them kind of struggling with the process. So yeah, I think intention does have a really critical part. And for the pilgrimage, for me, I think it's more about the kind of speed and intention of travel. It just feels like
Mm,
traveling at more of a human pace, Like I
Yeah.
heard, what did I heard? I heard something recently that you can travel on a plane, but your soul walks. So one of the explanations for jet lag, yeah, one of the explanations for jet lag is that your soul's still trying to catch up. It's still walking behind you. So those first few days after you arrive somewhere, you're a little bit like discombobulated. Could actually be
Because your soul's
some merit to
swimming.
that. Yeah, yeah. Just
um,
slowly walking along the water.
just quickly too, your camera's off. That's intentional, right?
Oh shit! Sorry. No, I turned the screen off, but I didn't know I turned the camera off.
Oh, I should have asked earlier because we got a bunch of just me sitting here.
All right, well, back on. Well,
um,
we can use AI to reimagine the conversation in that little snippet.
oh
See what,
man,
to see what it comes up with.
who is it? Somebody Duncan does
Duncan Trussell, yeah,
midnight. Duncan Trussell Midnight Gospel. Man,
yeah, exactly. We'll just turn that bit into an anime.
that stuff
I'm
is
happy to
great.
run with that, considering assuming the production cost isn't so high. Um, I so I just spent a couple of weeks for Christmas in Bangkok visiting my family, and one of the things that really got me through the experience was a daily massage while listening to Alan Watts. So I had this kind of like experience of really like blessing my body for 2 weeks, like every day a massage, crazy, like foot massage, Thai massage, oil massage. My body just feels so great. And then like the philosophical elements, and both of those things I wouldn't normally make time for, but the fact that I did it for pretty much 2 weeks straight was incredible. Um, and one of the recurring themes that I kept hearing in um, Alan Watts's talks was this idea of the what was it? The coincidence of opposites, and
Tell
how
me more.
all like you can't have something unless there's an opposite of it. And it strikes me that as we're both sitting here, I'm all black. You're pretty much all white. You've got green on the inside. I got green all on the outside.
Yeah, I think it's balance. Like,
Coincidence?
nah, it's because we
Nah.
called each other before. Hey, what are you wearing?
Yeah, no, you got to wear the white thing, man. Yeah,
Uh,
but
um,
so for me, the teaching in the coincidence of opposites is actually being able to being able to like hold and appreciate both sides, and like the white or the black is not better. They're both
mhm.
really important for each other, and that how do you celebrate both of them kind of in equal weightedness? Weightedness? No, but I think
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
run with it.
And more the people in my life that can hold paradox and not be
Mm,
like, this is the right way, this is the only way. The people that I tend to click a lot more with. So I think there is something about the coincidence of opposites and paradox, and there's something about this space that, because you need to have an open mind to hold a paradox.
yeah, yeah. You need to be intellectually, spiritually large enough to hold the paradox. We talk about holding space, and if you're closed-minded, you're sitting in a room by yourself. But if you can like expand to the point where you're in a big house where you've got a lot of different rooms, then there's room for all of this stuff. There's room for
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of closed mindedness comes through the intellectual studies. So, like,
mm,
we're educated into a system where there is very much a right and a wrong answer. And then
yeah,
when you extrapolate that out over entire careers, you have a lot of um, humans that walk around this this planet feeling like they have the right answer, and other people distinctly have the wrong answer. And
because it's not the answer that
there's
they have. Yeah,
because it's the answer that they have, and to me that's kind of the root of a lot of tension and actually, yeah, what was it? There's self-importance, righteousness, and uh, there's another one as well. But like the three biggest kind of diseases, maybe the
mm,
psychological diseases out there. But
victimhood.
yeah, it wasn't victimhood, but the victimhood's another good one. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Um,
Um, this balance
Yeah.
thing too, uh, connecting this with like making um, AI cartoons to fill in while your camera's been off. Like this idea of balance is really interesting because I think that there are lots of tools that are super useful, but in the right context, right? Like, um, to use to use what we built as an example, like we're talking about making tools that help people be offline. And yeah, you have the technical part of that. You can send messages to people. You can have a digital calendar that lives in a cloud and that you can access from anywhere. And yes, there is that side of it. But the other side of it is, all right, can I slow down? Can I
Mm,
reflect on what's really human? Can I
mm,
create space for these things that are inherently very valuable and can't actually be done by the other half of this? That's why we need the yin and the yang. That's why we need the balance.
mm,
Um, and I think that we get so amazed by technology because it's fucking incredible. Like if you think about 2000 years ago, that I would have a fucking thing a foot long that has a screen on it that allows me to talk to my friend on the other side of the world in real time, I would have to laugh you out of the room, right? It just seems insane. Like we are rightfully very impressed by technology, but I think we don't often hold enough space for like the
mm.
pen and paper, like
Yeah.
the you
Which is
know
also technology. Like these are all tools. These are all technologies. And I think unfortunately what's happened is because our visual cortex takes up a lot of our capacity, the
mm,
visual tools, such as these screens that we stare into, are the ones that have captivated the most amount of time and attention. And now it's like, all right, it's clearly not a healthy balance right now because what the average human is between 8 to 10 hours a day on a screen, so potentially more of their waking hours. And there's some up to like 16. There's a lot of kids that are more like 16 hours a day
yeah.
between the computer screen, their phone, and their TV. Like you're not actually in reality anymore. Do you want to switch sides?
We can't. Fuck. I don't know if we can.
It's it's up to you. I'm happy on this side, but I'm happy to switch sides.
Oh yeah. Did that switch sides for you?
No, no.
Oh, okay. So I switched it. So now I'm on. Now I'm on this side. I don't know how this is going to record, but I guess we'll figure it out.
Or is it weird because you don't have a plant to talk to?
Now I'm just looking out the window. Yeah, and it's dark outside. And this is the side that my sty is on. I've been not sleeping
Your
enough,
sty.
apparently.
Oh, you got a
I'm
you
gonna
got a sleeping sty, do you?
developing a sty over the last couple of days. Not good, man.
Yeah.
Um. Anyway,
But I think
tangential.
there's definitely a pun in that, but it's not coming. It's not forthcoming, and if it was, it would probably be terrible. So we'll leave it out of here. Yeah.
uh, I have room in my life for bad puns, dad jokes, mum jokes.
I do as well, but I find increasingly less um enthusiasm around them. The more I share them.
Yeah,
So
I was on a work call with three actual dads, and I made a really bad dad joke, and they all went, "Oh." It's like, come on, guys.
yeah,
You're
why
my
like what?
audience.
Yeah, why aren't there more? I'm like, why aren't there not more appreciations for wordplays?
Yeah.
Because
I also,
I know they sound obvious when you say them, but they're not obvious because no one else is saying them. Or maybe they are really obvious and that no one's saying them because they're so obvious. But those aren't normally the puns I fuck with. So
no. Yeah, I want in the moment puns. What I do often wonder is if there are puns in other languages that I don't speak that are really good. Or like if people are more interested in puns in some languages in some languages than in others, you know?
I have punned in other languages.
Have you?
It has
I'm
happened, yeah.
I'm quite
So
impressed.
the one that comes to mind it's a Spanish German crossover pun. I never thought.
Okay.
Pretty often you'd hear those words in a Spanish German crossover pun. Um, and it was when I was in my early 20s, and I was either in Spain or Germany, and I was no, I was in Spain, and I was speaking to a cute German girl, and I was asking for her for a lighter. And so in German, lighter is Feuer,
Follar. Okay.
and in Spanish, Feuer is to fuck. But when you ask, when you ask for a lighter, you say tienes
Yeah, do you have
Feuer. So she was very confused, but I was making a very innocent
lighter?
gesture with it. But I was actually looking for a lighter, not the other thing. But it landed the way it was supposed to. So
Uh,
yeah,
my Spanish word for lighter is small fire because I don't know how to say lighter. So
what's more fire? Well, I'm figuring out how to say
tienes
lighter as well.
un poquito fuego.
Potato fuego. Perfect.
My I would like
I
to
remember the word
improve my
for
Spanish
ashtray, but not.
this year.
Well, I've got the one for ashtray if you want.
Okay, hit me.
But it's been a while since I said this word, and I may mispronounce it both on a Spanish lisping sense and just a greater sense. But um, uh,
Cenicero. Okay.
cenicero, cenicero,
Well,
cenicero.
we'll test this out. I'll say it to someone who speaks Spanish, and I'll report back whether or
Yeah,
not they
but
know
if
what I'm
it's
talking about.
Spanish from Spain, then you get away with cenicero. But
Uh-huh.
otherwise, you'd sound like yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm pretty sure it's cenicero, cenicero.
Cenicero. This reminds me, I had a dream a couple of years ago,
Oh yeah.
and I remember waking up from this dream and being just amazed at brains, basically, because I don't know how to speak any Swedish, and in my dream, I was having a conversation with myself, and I was teaching myself Swedish, and I fully believed that I was learning Swedish in this dream, and I woke up and I went like, that's crazy. I don't know how to speak Swedish. How am I teaching myself in a dream? Um, and I also don't remember any of what I taught myself, so we can't this isn't telepathy tapes where where I was being
Do
taught
you
by.
do you believe in past lives? And if so, do you believe you may have had a past life in Sweden?
I do believe in past lives, but I haven't thought very much about it. And yes, intuitively, yeah, I've had a past life in Sweden. I mean, if I believe
Like,
in past lives, I'm saying that I believe in essentially infinite past lives, and one of them must have been in Sweden.
yeah, it's a fair point. And like, do you reincarnate as one life, or do you reincarnate as fragments across multiple lives and multiple elements as well? And I was also part of the pavement for a period of time. And
No, but I think that there are certain things that do come back to you. But the I guess I always want a
well,
reason for
that's
things.
what life is, right? It's like a great remembering. Like we're here just to remember the different aspects. And
Exactly.
yeah,
But I think that that the things that you remember are things that are unfinished. They're things that actually are like calls to adventure. It's like, okay, there is this
tell me more
thing.
about that.
So, do you ever have this experience where like you can't describe it, but you just have to do something? Like, why are you doing that? I just feel like I need to, or I want
Yes,
to. And there's
yeah.
no like logical reason for it. You haven't planned it out, but it's like, okay, this makes sense isn't the right phrasing for it, because makes sense implies that it's logical. It's not
That's exactly
logical.
what I'm doing with libraries right now.
Exactly. Okay. Okay.
It doesn't make sense, but somehow it makes sense, and I've like compelled. There's a real compulsion to do this,
Uh,
and it feels external. Yeah,
and it seems like from the people that I know that is like what makes people feel most alive, when they're like, look, this isn't a logical thing. I'm just like compelled to do this thing. I'm just pulled towards this thing. So I think that when that happens, it's because there is something that is unfinished, or there's something that like really needs to be lived out through you. And
Mm,
for some reason, there is a connection to you, and maybe it's a past life thing where they go, all right, this person already, or this soul, or this being already has a lot of these skills, or already has like a bunch of the pieces of this puzzle. This puzzle needs to be completed by somebody, and we're inviting you to come and do it. And I think that people have different levels of, and I think even individuals have different sensitivities to being pulled towards these things. And if you're like really listening out for it and trying lots of things, then you can hear what those things are, like libraries. And this is funny because I've only experienced libraries through you in a couple of small instances, and we haven't even really spoken deeply about libraries. So I'm very curious about this. Um,
what do you, is there an aspect of it that you're curious about in general?
yeah. So I like the idea of libraries in that they're a public good and they're information and they're a place for people to go um, and better themselves, basically. But I
Mm,
do think that they've fallen off a lot, and that's because the stuff that is in libraries or was in libraries is either outdated or there's like new ways of communicating that stuff. But
mhm.
the concept of libraries is what I'm really interested in. Um,
Yeah, I mean, me too. Like I'm trying to recall where the initial kind of like seed of this kind of popped up, but part of it was, after building farms in New York City for many years, like I kind of got a bit of a sense of like what does it take to build something that seemingly doesn't belong in one place and then see it actually have kind of profound impact. And again, libraries have been one of those places that I actually really do enjoy going and sitting and spending time in and actually doing work. Like I find co-working spaces, the energy and like very hard to work in, but libraries, there's kind of this protected field in it somehow. And even though like a lot of the books I'm not accessing, there's something around just being around them in a sense. And then it just struck me that there's so much knowledge that um, is embodied in landscape, and it's not really held anywhere in a meaningful way. And you can go to small towns and they'll have like a little library, but those little libraries are even more stale than the larger stale libraries. There's normally a bunch of grumpy women in there that aren't particularly like. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but like that is tends to be the trend. Um, and I'm not sure if them being grumpy is part of them holding the space to be quiet and respectful. But
Human grumpy librarians. Or you're
yeah,
talking
there's
about
very
the
few
people
libraries that
who
I've
are.
walked into, and it feels like people are, like glad to see you in there type thing. Like welcome you in.
You need to come
There's
to
this
some
kind of
libraries
like
in
a
New Zealand.
okay, yeah. Well, I'd love to come visit some libraries in New Zealand. In fact, one of my favorite library cards is the Auckland Library card because that's the one that gives me the most audiobooks right now. It's incredible. Yeah, Auckland Library, shout out. You guys are doing great work. So I think I told you about this, right? There's this app called Libby, and you with your library cards, you just borrow audiobooks or ebooks. And probably I've been on this for probably the last, I'd say probably 10 years, and I've probably consumed like what average of 50 to 60 books a year that way, and it's such a gift. Again, so libraries. So definitely as a public good, as something that really is a physical space as well, and increasingly I think the younger generations don't have many of these like third spaces to go to,
Mm.
and these third spaces that are not purely commercial. Like
Yeah, that are not wanting
the
something
town
from you.
hall. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you go to a marketplace now, it's all just salesy, right? Um, and if you go to a school has become salesy, a university has become salesy. Like these are all very active ways of education, and as a perspective of active education, they end up being a little bit short-sighted because they can only, by definition, educate on what they've decided is the way to educate. Whereas a library is both passive and active, because it's passive in the sense that all of the knowledge is here, and it's up to how active you want to be in interacting with it. And almost the sequence in which you borrow out books or get different bits of information are going to inform your experience.
Mm.
So um, I'm really fascinated now by like, well, what happens if we take the idea of a library, which is thousands of years old and has stood the test of time on multiple cultures,
Mm.
and if we apply that to more of a natural setting, and instead of it just being books, what if we broaden the perspective of a library that also has tools and access to resources and different types of interfaces that allow us to explore knowledge. And I'm really excited by the tool angle actually, because with every tool, if you think about it, every tool that exists, there is some inherent knowledge embedded in it. And
Mm-hmm.
you can either use it the way that it was intended or make up your own use for it. But it still is like there's embodied knowledge in that. And yeah, just in the kind of recent 6 months, I'd say I've been spending a lot more time thinking about what tools are important to learn, both
Mm.
individually and collectively. And then, how can those tools be made more accessible and, um, yeah, kind of shape your experience. I
Mm.
was, I actually popped up with a partner on the library project. We popped up a library at the Natural History Museum in Lisbon, and it was a collaboration with the Explorers Club and National Geographic. And so we invited a bunch of explorers to donate some of their tools for the
Mm.
pop-up library. And actually, one of the questions I asked a couple of the explorers as they were donating their tools was, uh, did you find the tools or did the tools find you? And I remember this one guy telling me about when he was like 16 or 17, his family friend was a paparazzi photographer, and he came to town to visit him and his family, and he had to leave on short notice, and unfortunately couldn't get one shot that he was commissioned to take. So he left the camera and said, "Hey, can you go and take a photo of this person at this time? This is blah blah blah." So this guy goes and he's 16, 17. He wanders out with his camera, takes the photo, and he's like, he gets it. So he sends him the photo and said, where can I send the camera? And he goes, oh, don't worry about the camera. I've already bought a new one. That's your camera now. So now all of a sudden, this guy's got a paparazzi kind of grade camera. He's not interested in the slightest in the paparazzi side of things, but it allowed him to view different aspects of nature from a very different perspective of which he didn't have. So he actually became, and partly, an explorer because of this tool that found him, that opened up this world to him in a way that he didn't think of or consider before. And I think right now we've overemphasized the digital tools and we've really underemphasized the analog tools that
Mm.
really extend all of our senses rather than just our visual and intellectual sense.
Mm.
And then when you apply that to different specific locations, so each library would have knowledge very specific to that area. Then you end up with each library having a very unique set of tools, a very unique set of knowledge, a very unique set of resources around it, and that's kind of what I'm exploring now as kind of like the next generation of what libraries could actually be. And so these libraries would be places that you visit more in a natural setting. So like, I'm sitting in Bali right now, but as far as I know, well, I know there's not too many libraries here, but as far as I know, there's not one library on the library of rice. And the rice fields here are incredible. They're beautiful, but actually embedding a library of rice in a rice field somewhere and then having that aesthetically like placed and then all knowledge that anyone needs and the tools around rice, you go to this library. Or
Yeah.
actually having this rice library that travels around the island and helps different rice farmers upskill what they're doing in terms of best practices. And because it's a library, it stands as a public good. It's not for
Mm.
profit. It's not for profit. It's not public. It's not private. It's this kind of thing in the middle. And I think in this time and age, this era, neutrality, having a space that is neutral, is a really powerful thing. You know, it's
Hmm.
not connected to government. It's not connected to, an economic system. It's just like we want to create spaces that share knowledge as the highest virtue. And I'm actually talking with a couple of fellow librarian innovators right now about what it might take to actually get a library on the moon. Because at the moment there is a race to build the first structures on the moon, and at the moment the two leading races are military or mining.
Yeah.
And at least from my perspective, they don't really hold the highest virtues of us as a species at the core of either of those.
Hmm.
Um, Although I can understand the importance of both of those, what if we were to, at least in the first instance, put something out there that stood for the highest virtue of all cultures and societies?
Hmm.
And there's something about a library that I think presents that well,
Yeah. Well,
or
like
positions that well.
those other two examples are not neutral, right? They have explicit goals. They have explicit aims that are also, yeah, that are also not neutral. Um,
No, exactly. So um, yeah, so there's something to
mm.
that. Yeah, is there anything that jumps out on in any of that stuff that you might want to double click on or
Yeah, that's
pull
super
apart?
interesting. What jumps out is that like building a library is an explicit act of condensing information into one place, right? And when you talk about the rice field library, the knowledge is right now decentralized. And just like you have issues in decentralization and technology and centralized authority or centralized tools or centralized databases, whatever it is, um, you have issues with decentralized information in the rice fields. Like each farmer probably has quite a lot of information, maybe not all of it.
Hmm.
And they pass that information down from generation to generation or from person to person or however the information is passed along, right? So it's interesting to explicitly look at different areas, different fields, and say, all right, where are we condensing this information? How are we condensing this information? This, like, yeah, how do you think about that? And is it, is there a better way to, like, kind of put this together so that it's consumable? Do you think that's universal or do you think it's like
Yeah,
domain by
it's
domain?
like it's definitely it's definitely something we don't have the answer for. It's something that we think there's lots of things that we can try to figure out and explore and play. And um, like I strongly believe that these libraries should be considered more as kind of like art installations
Mm,
and more creative spaces rather than the the really serious type of spaces that they are at the moment. um, and they could really be these things that the aristocracy historically had also funded different libraries, and
mm,
to varying levels of success. I think there's a way in which the 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 wealthier class could fund these spaces as um, just good sources of truth that aren't actually manipulated by market forces. So pretty much every farming, most farming knowledge right now. So again, if we're focusing on knowledge of the land, and a lot of that knowledge of the land is connected to agricultural or forestry purposes, most of the knowledge that becomes like usable knowledge is through commercial industry.
mm,
So most of the rice farmers here in Indonesia will get a lot of their information from their supplier and their local hardware store, and like that's basically it. They'll pass on a little bit of knowledge between themselves, but by and large, it works like that. And you can look at that pretty much anywhere in the world; it'll be pretty similar. There is typically some information that happens in the marketplace as well, but these marketplaces aren't again designed to kind of the zero sum game, right? Like if I'm winning, that means someone else is losing, and market prices are really not in the best interest of everyone in this farming situation. So um, then it requires you as a farmer to go out and look up very specific information about how to like maybe increase your yield. Um, but it's quite a risky thing because you might find some information online, but then it's quite a risky thing to try because if you don't get it right for a season or two, then like that could be really hard. And a lot of farmers around the world, like there are very tight margins, so they're actually quite risk adverse.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that a library space is going to shift many existing farmers. What we're focused on initially is new landowners and kids between the age of 8 to 12. And we're being quite strategic about that. But any landowner anywhere in the world has a pretty steep learning curve. You know, the first 5 years
Yeah.
of understanding their land, their local resources, what skills are around them, how to kind of be in right relationship with the land as well. So you could say it's sustainable, but actually, like, how can you just be in right relationship with your land? Like, how can you understand the seasonal fires that might come through, or the floods, or the different migration patterns of different insects and birds, and then how with your understanding of those cycles, how can you plant different species to support that rather than to work against it?
Mm.
So to kind of go with the natural flow of things, so to speak. Also, there are some shifts in different climates. Like the climate is never stable, right? So how understanding how you can bring some resiliency to that, like that level of knowledge is quite hard to come by, and particularly having it relative to your region makes the most amount of sense.
Yeah.
And actually, if you come together as individual households, and then as a collection of neighbors, and then as a collection of neighbors as a region, regionally, you can actually have quite a large impact on the stability and resiliency of your climate in a way, particularly around
Mm.
rainfall. Like there's some pretty well documented practices around bringing water to the land with a conservative practice and in pretty much any region. I mean, you've got the Great Green Wall of China and the Great Green Wall of Africa that are literally planting forests to stop forests, to stop deserts. So reclaiming, the most dry, arid lands.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
How long have libraries been around for? Do you know roughly? Like first
I
kind
look.
of.
I don't know. I can't attest to knowing when the first library was built, but the Library of Alexandria, for instance, which is probably
Yeah.
one of the older ones that a lot of people would be familiar with. I think it's a couple thousand years old.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm just like
I kind of feel
drawing
like it was
this
4,000 years, but I'm not sure.
this thread. Okay. We can look it up. The idea though is that like if you look at libraries as a technology, or like if you think about each of these, say written language as a technology, if you look at technology and how it's used by humans and then judge its success by how long it has been used for, because there
Mm,
are technologies that enter, and like VHS, how long was that around for? 2 or 3 years? No, maybe a decade, right? Um, but like we had this technology, then we found a better way to do the same thing.
mm,
And therefore that technology became obsolete. But there are things like, say, the written language that has been around for a long time. I mean, like tattoos, for example, are in a lot of cultures how you started telling stories, or how you started to like pass stories on, right? So like these technologies and how they move throughout time and how they stay
mm,
relatively the same is quite an interesting angle for looking at either how successful a technology is or how much weight we should put on it.
mm,
You're talking about like the visual cortex, and that we use a large percent of our brain goes to our eyesight and processing. And therefore, we're really interested in things that are visually stimulating. But there are lots of things that are more important, if we think about how long they've been around for, than things that are pretty. Like, we didn't have color pigment for.
Well, I mean, I think, this idea of like knowledge or ways of knowing have, there's lots of
Mm,
different traditions. Like, you've got a lot of indigenous communities that they don't have libraries, they have story keepers. So like
mm,
that's the way that they pass their knowledge on. It's through stories, it's through myth, and then it's actually through just passing teachings on. And teachings aren't taught in this kind of like sit down and listen to me. It's actually all or mostly through observation. And yeah, if you look at it from what are the ways of kind of knowing technology landscape, yeah, there's not too many new ways that have emerged lately. I mean, they may have been wrapped in a digital layer with pixels on it, but yeah,
yeah.
there's a bit that's missing. You know, a part of this that maybe I haven't put as much emphasis on the library piece, but I think ultimately is an important one is this idea of um, collective knowledge or collective sense making and collective kind of knowledge systems. And at the moment, with each of us on our individual screens, we're kind of
Mm,
walking around with um, kind of fragmented individual aspects of knowledge as opposed to, one place that you can come and gather and be like, all right, this place has the knowledge, and then we can spend time in the same room with it and make decisions more collectively rather than individually. And I suspect there's something in that space that's
mm,
really fertile right now as well. Um,
mm.
but
Interesting. And
there's a
even
lot of
from a
layers to this that I've been kind of uncovering, and my mind's a bit, but I'm a little too close to it. I need to let it lay a little, and then
mm,
um, the next bit of it to emerge. But yeah,
that's interesting. How do you think about like working on things and taking a step back and momentum? Like, do you have a process?
I'd like to say that I'd like to say I have a process, but I think more often than not, it's like I get hit by the process. Like
Yeah.
if something isn't progressing naturally, it's like, this is a time to like close and reflect, or this is a time to like do this bit a little slower. But a little bit like this seasons in the year. I think there's a good season to plant new ideas. There's a good season to like actually grow things. There's a good season to like cut things back and simplify. There's a good
Mm,
season just to reflect. So um, uh, I think that I'm not looking at least the libraries in through the lens of what a traditional startup would be. It's because it's not about reaching X millions of dollars or X millions of subscribers. It's much more about having spaces that actually allow communities to come back in to. I keep coming back to this indigenous perspective, which is all my relations, so understanding how to be in right relation.
mm,
And this idea of rightness from this perspective is not like there's a right and a wrong way. Um, but there is definitely a way to be kind of more in harmony with something. So you're not
mm,
swimming against the grain of it. And so being in right relationship, like for instance, this year I met this really incredible character called Rendra Singh. And over the past 30 years, he's restored over 25 rivers in India. And
wow.
this is in an area where it's super dry, super arid. It was through these like large collective efforts where he mobilized thousands of people with small little practices that he was able to revive and restore all of these rivers. Like that's the kind of knowledge and wisdom that brings us back into right relationship. And then when you bring that into right relationship and you restore something like a whole watershed and a river basin, like there's so many other things that benefit from that. And all despite the fact that we're not really behaving like this, but we are a custodial species of this planet, and we have the ability to step up into being custodians as opposed to being consumers of this planet. And
Hmm.
yeah, I just hope that these libraries could be physical spaces that at least provide one pathway into more of that as a practice. And again, I think landowners new landowners, because they're the ones that really need this knowledge, and younger kids between 8 to 12, when they're already naturally curious, they're already curious about the world, and then you just open up the gateways and give them tools so they can continue to explore, and then that next generation will just see what emerges there.
Mm, interesting.
Mm.
Double clicking on this indigenous wisdom in New Zealand and Māori, there's a word for it. To be a custodian of the land is a kaitiaki, a
Kaitiaki.
a protector of the land. Yeah, and I should be more educated on this topic, and I think that, but I'm getting this broadly right, but I'm sure there's nuance to it. Is that when the Treaty of Waitangi was being negotiated and signed by the like in New Zealand, um, and there's a lot that needs to happen to write this, but basically the translation is that like people thought about land as not being owned, as being looked after by the people, and then the
Totally.
crown had this idea of like land ownership, which was just a foreign concept. um so like when you had this mistranslation to the point where it's like a actual thing, like it's a conceptual misalignment. It's like if you are taking
Totally.
care of the
Yeah.
land, then it takes care of you. And yeah.
Yeah, and New Zealand's been, one of the front runners on this kind of rights of nature movement, and giving,
Yeah.
different aspects of nature legal personage, which, yeah, I don't know, like, still dealing with the legal parts of it, but actually what seems to have been one of the earlier aspects of nature to give rights to our rivers, because
Yeah.
you can quite easily say, look, each river should have the right to flow to the ocean. Like, we
Hmm.
understand that that's largely what rivers do.
Yeah.
They flow from the mountain to the ocean, so how can they do that unencumbered and unpolluted? So it's a pretty easy, like, uh, um, perspective to hold, and then give those kind of rights associated with that. Whereas, if you were to attribute legal personage to some other natural, some other aspect of nature, so like the oceans, like, how do you then govern that? I mean, you could largely say unpolluted as well, but on what scale, and then who's managing
Mm.
that? But yeah, it's
Yeah. It's interesting because we're looking at different systems, right? There are natural systems. Um, the planet was already here. Then humans, one species on the planet, come along and create our own systems. And sometimes those are, um, uh, for example, we created the legal system, right? Or legal
mm,
systems. And those are inherently going to be less complicated than nature, or less nuanced, because we have to spend all of this energy defining all of these things, right? And then
mm,
we're trying to fit uh, an infinitely complex system, nature, into a system that we've created to fulfill a particular purpose, which is um, making sure that people are treating each other right, the high level, right?
mm,
Um, and there's just a mismatch there, or there's like this difficulty because we are um, I think man-made systems don't have natural balance, or at least they haven't been tested enough for the most part to find their natural balance.
mm,
Like, to take the legal system, there are like there's always more cases coming forward and different precedents being set, and so it's an evolving system and it hasn't found an equilibrium. And I think
mm.
that we, yeah, in nature, you find balance all over the place. Like, even where there's disharmony, it's usually just like a rebalancing. It's,
It's recording on my end. At least it looks like it. Yeah, I'm in the app. Yeah, I'll keep it in, man. It's all part of figuring it out. All part of figuring out how to have a long talk. It depends who I'm talking to. Like with you, I don't. Like, I just feel like I'm talking with you. But I find some people, as soon as the camera comes on, they go like, and so tell me about the time that you're like, I'm like, man, we just we just have a conversation. But as soon as the other side becomes a bit like this, and like they're watching what they say, I feel like I need to watch what I say. So um, and because I guess I'm not really like hosting these conversations, or at least not yet. Um, I don't quite have to. I'm not quite holding the space for it. I was going to say your dictation has been incredible. Did you watch that growing up? I mean, you must have, right? Dictation must the uh Summer High. Is that what I think that's what it's called? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fuck you, missed. It's a beautiful strain of humor. Oh wow, you've got a lot less pixelation in the second one.
Leave on that one. All right. He's still there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, nice. Okay. I can only see myself now. Um,
No, no, I can see. I can also
okay.
hear you a lot better. So, all right, well, we figured out that the video and audio quality is much better on the actual app.
Much better if we don't do it through the browser. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm glad it only
I've
took us 2 hours to realize that.
I realized also that my computer is too slow to be able to run dev to be able to like run programs locally. So whenever I'm doing development work, I just have to wing it and ship it and then test it in a browser
Yeah.
rather than running it on my computer, which is a wild way to be doing development.
No,
Why? Why?
it's just learning in public, man.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually I was gonna say we should open source the reservations platform and see if anyone wants to fork it. To say,
Yeah.
let's open ourselves up to forkability.
Make it forkable?
Forkable, mate.
I don't know. Somebody might fork it. Oh, but that'd be a good thing. That's right. Okay. Can I get your help, guidance here? How do
Sure.
I
What do
make it
you?
so I can see you as well?
Oh, mate, I don't have the foggiest, but I could try logging out and logging in again.
No, 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 no. That's definitely on my side. Oh well. Hmm. Share screen.
Have you
Is
tried
it
turning
there?
it on off and on again?
I have not. Oh, open main window. Here we go. Oh no. But I do kind of need a bathroom break. Do you mind if we pause for a second?
No, I was gonna say, can you hold it for another 50 minutes? No, go for it. Go for a break.
I'm going to be very irritable. I'll be back. You there? Oh.
All right. Let's get back.
Um,
Go back. And we're back.
and we're back. I still haven't figured out how to make me be able to see you as well. I just see my big face.
Do you
No.
have any
Oh,
podcasting aspirations?
absolutely. I was thinking about this yesterday or the day before. That one of the most fun things about one of the roles that I'm in is that I get to interview a bunch of really interesting people.
Hmm.
And I was also listening to a podcast today, and the interviewer was talking about how, like, they get to live the life that they really like living. Like, they get to wake up in the morning and do this thing that they really like doing. And that is a really, like, clear and obvious and, like, of course kind of realization. But it's like, if you if the goal of the thing is to stop doing the thing, then it's probably not a very good goal. Like if you're building a startup in order to exit and sell the startup, like that for a lot of people is, for a lot of founders, is like a really sad day. And you can see that because people go and start a new company. Like, they work all this time on this thing that they really like doing, and then they sell it, and they're like, "Oh fuck, like I really liked that." Um, People often feel like lost, I think, because you put so much time and effort into this thing, and yeah, does that make sense?
Of course it does. Tell me more about your podcasting aspirations, or like you just like as an invitation to record some of your interviews that you're already
Yeah. As an invitation to record some of the interviews that I'm already doing. I don't understand.
doing. No, so if you were going to start a podcast, it would
Yeah.
just be an extension of the interviews that you're already doing with people. And have you given
I
much
see.
thought about like format or that kind of stuff? What's the like? Do you want to start doing podcasts? And if so, like, how many? What for? Like, what are you gonna call it? Like, paint me a picture.
All right. I'll dive into this. So I've had a couple of avenues that I wanted to go down, and I think the most interesting one is FutureCast,
Hmm.
FutureCast FM, and the whole idea is that um, technology often evolves, or the world evolves in a direction that is already known. And you can see this like most of the things that were in the Jetsons are now real. Like almost all of them. I think one thing is not real now that was in the Jetsons. But I think we need people telling stories about how they. We need people telling optimistic stories about the world so that we have something to aim
Hmm.
for.
Hmm.
And so much media is sad and depressing and like
Hmm. Hmm.
rage media to get people's attention. But I want to talk to people who are intelligent at the head of their fields and who want to tell an optimistic story about the future so that we can get more people behind these things, like to try and make um, these things that are quite intangible more tangible in the way that we get people to tell the stories about um, whatever the thing is. Uh, like I know that there is a lot of technology. There are people who are making materials that are much more sustainable than what is mostly used, and they're cheaper, and just generally we have better ways of doing things. But it's really hard to disrupt that unless we have an interesting story behind it. Um, and so I think there's room for like basically optimistic, in depth stories about where we are and where we could be going.
Hmm.
And specifically around technology or specifically around the future.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I haven't come across too many that have done that well.
Hmm.
There's one out of Australia called Future Tense,
Future
but they're
tense.
quite Future Tense, yeah. But it's quite quick. It's an ABC podcast, so it's produced well, but like, they try to fit it into like a 50-minute kind of piece.
Hmm.
Then there was a lady that did a series with the Post Carbon Institute called "What Could Possibly Go Right," um,
Yes.
and I think I look, to be honest, I didn't listen to too many of her podcasts, but I think what she struggled with, or maybe what her guests struggled with more often than not, was people have been working on the problems for so long they'd actually forgotten how to tell a compelling story about the positive future. So when someone asks what could possibly go right, they're like, well, you know, and I'm sure,
Maybe.
yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you're familiar with the saying that the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
that strikes me as that could be a really beautiful cornerstone for the podcast, and then it's like finding maybe the people, but then also I suspect maybe also the format in which it makes it easy for people that have figured out one aspect of the future to be able to share it in a compelling way, and that would
Yeah.
then be part of your gift as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess I consume podcasts, so I think that they are accessible, but they're not accessible for a lot of people, especially.
No, I don't mean like the podcast format in general, but I'd say again like positive stories about the future. and a lot of people that may have figured out that aspect of it that could be like overly scientific or whatever it is may not necessarily be able to articulate a particularly compelling vision for the future, even though they've been able to do it in their kind of area of domain. The area of domain. That's not quite right.
Hmm. Nah, who cares? I Yeah, it totally makes sense. But also, this is funny, like saying words that are not quite right. There's a word for it, like using a word in the wrong place. But also, I think that when it comes to communication, when it comes to language, like if you're nitpicking, like interesting conversations, creativity, all of these things only take place if you can make mistakes. And
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
can't make
exactly, totally.
mistakes, then, you know. So I'm also a really big fan of like in everything, just like letting the small mistakes slide. And you notice that it's only people who are really like nervous about how they come across or about like not looking intelligent who will like pull up little things, you know. I remember being in a tech role, and I worked as first of all as like um the chief of staff for the smaller tech company, and then we got bought, and I got to work across all of these different fields. And I remember being in a meeting with like senior people, like the head of revenue and some other senior people, and the head of revenue was like talking about an initiative that they wanted to roll out. And they were like, everything clear? And everyone was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And this one woman was like, no, I really don't understand. Can you please explain that again? And the way that the head of revenue had explained it was not clear at all. Like
Mm.
everyone was just not like nodding along because they didn't want to look stupid. And this woman just said like, no, actually, I'll call this person Janine for name suppression, because I like to speak nicely about people and not speak badly about them. But basically, she had just like not explained this thing very well, and this woman just put her hand up and said like, I actually don't know what you're trying to communicate. I don't understand. And the chief of revenue had to like slow down and really tell the story properly and like make sure that everybody understood. And at the end of the meeting, I was like, wow, that person who put their hand up and said, I don't understand, that one question, being like brave enough to say, hey, I don't get that, but created so much value. Like there was, you know, 10 or 15 people in that meeting, all on serious salaries. Like it's a lot of money at a company being wasted if nobody understands what they're talking about. So, like, just
Of course,
slowing
yeah.
down and not using jargon really is such an unlock.
Well, I think
Um,
that's also the big unlock for podcasts as well, because some of the best podcasters I find are the ones that are actually just bringing in beginner's mindset to conversations. So, like, actually, no, can you explain that bit? I don't quite get that bit. Like,
Mm.
what's the story with this? Or like, um, I actually, for me, I like the podcasters that present themselves as like not an area expert, but they're just like holding the space for curiosity almost. And then it feels like a much easier bridge to cross as an audience member as well.
yeah,
And
interesting.
yeah, and kind of ironically, I'm not sure if you've even seen the show Jeremy Clarkson's or Clarkson's Farm, but Jeremy Clarkson, ran Top Gear for decades, and
Yeah,
then his farmer in the Cotswolds decided to quit, so he's like, I'm going to do it myself. He doesn't know anything about farming, but him recording himself figuring it out in public has actually led to some really um, massive shifts in the farming policies in the UK because he's doing it in front of
really
everyone.
interesting.
For better, depending on who you talk to, you're going to get different responses, but still, this kind of learning in public pieces seems to be quite powerful. So, um, what would what support would you need to get this podcast up and off?
uh, it's a really good question. An accountability buddy. I think I basically got it. Yeah. And maybe some introductions to people who are interested in having conversations about an optimistic future.
Yeah.
And have a story to tell. Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
So when you say
but yeah.
accountability partner, like how many episodes do you want to do this?
Okay. I I'd like to do 12. I'd like to do one every month.
Okay.
Um, that seems super, super doable. And in fact, it's probably not enough to, you know what? I'd like to do 6 in the first half of the year and 12 in the second half of the year. So I want to do 18.
All right. I reckon you go a little more, but this, but like there seems to be like a bit of a flow that happens when you're doing like one or two a week, as opposed to one or two a month.
Mm, okay. Um,
So like even if you just did a season, like you did, let's say you still did 18 episodes, but you did them in the first quarter as opposed to the entire.
oh yeah.
How does that feel?
Ooh, it feels great. Um, Q1, 18 episodes. Yeah, that's doable.
Season one.
Season 1. Uh, yeah, I can do that. I would like to do that. I was actually considering what my one thing this year would be. You heard of the concept of a misogi?
I have, but refresh my memory.
It's this idea that you do every year 1 year defining thing. So you go, in 2026 I launched a podcast, or in 2026 I ran a marathon, or I started a business, or I learned Japanese, whatever it is, one
Misogi.
big, one big challenging thing. And I was thinking
Mhm.
about what my misogi would be this year, and a podcast was the top contender, and the fact that it comes up now and that you're pushing it feels like some serendipity that I am very happy to get on board with and set time aside for. Um,
Well, I would happily also engage in this. So I
amazing.
think like let's if we launch at the same time and figure out things as we go. I think there's something to that because it's been sitting in the back of my mind for a little while. And like I don't know about you, but I just get stuck in like which which microphone should I use? and 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 which you know and
oh
and
yeah,
like what happens when I don't want to be looking at a screen the whole time and when I don't have a recording studio, and I've got dogs barking in the background and chickens clucking and
yeah, yeah. I think
I'm not sure if you
yeah,
can even hear the dog barking right now, but still it's like the things that stop us.
exactly. I think we um I don't know if this is the same for you. For me, I want things to be really good and I want to be proud of the thing. And
Mm.
that often stops me from doing the thing, but it's the first step thing, right? It's the telepathy thing that I was trying to tap into earlier. It's like, what is the very first step of this? Like, this is the first step of this, right?
Yeah,
And you don't need a microphone. You can do it with these. You can't have dogs barking in the background. That's not the biggest deal. Like, I know, I know a few things to be true. One of them that I absolutely know is true, and I forget all the time, is that if you just start to do something, you will get better at it.
yeah, of
I
course, yeah.
know that to be true for myself and for you, but it's so easy to go to like not understand that or to think that you should be perfect the first time.
Mm,
Um,
totally.
what um, what are your podcast kind of aspirations? What are you uh
Like I actually set myself this goal at on my birthday, but to record 40 episodes of something, which I haven't done. Um, I've done a bunch of interviews, but I haven't like done them as podcast episodes or anything. And then it was only until recently that I started listening. Joe Rogan and kind of fell in love with that format. And it just seems like such a beautiful invitation to have these long conversations like this. Like I can't believe I can't believe we're coming up to 2.5 hours. It's kind of gone by like that. And if like publishing it makes it more real, then so be it. I don't feel particularly compelled about the idea of like getting sponsors and having to deal with like best ranked things or anything like that, but actually just having beautiful conversations and just sharing them publicly. I think that would be nice. I kind of like one of the threads that's been coming up for me recently is this idea of field notes. Like I do like to travel
Mm.
around with my field notes, and this is kind of more of the idea of not talking about things that aren't like I know to be true, but these are the things that I'm figuring out. These are kind of the field notes. So
Mm.
rather than talking to an author that's just published a book and is going through all the podcast rounds, talking to someone that is maybe in the process of writing a book, and is happy and open to talk about what they're still figuring out. And then that way, that could also be an avenue for listeners to reach out and maybe contribute in some meaningful way. So
Mm.
yeah, there's something in that kind of field that is coming up.
I like this idea of field notes, and it could apply to anything, right? And it's
Well,
what this
exactly. So
building
I
in
wanted something
public
I
and
wanted something broad that could appeal to anything. Because there was a time where I definitely wanted to focus more on aspects of nature and all of that. But I think more and more
yeah,
that the more compelling podcasts are the ones that are really driven by the curiosity of who's hosting in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I also realize this is just a win-win. Like the technology is there that there's very little friction for actually
Mm.
recording the podcast. Like we're using this tech here, I'll call it out Riverside. And I know that we can like record this, then click a button and it will give us a bunch of like clips.
Mhm.
And that can be used by us or by the people that we interview for whatever it is that they're doing. And like the fact that people aren't, I mean, people are doing this, but not very many people are doing this. I know so many people who are intelligent and articulate and are not recording themselves and talking about their expertise, and they could be.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
and we
this
can
learning in
enable that
public
too.
piece, right? Like the learning in public piece, there is a level of vulnerability to it. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I mean, it's something that wasn't really a priority for me until quite recently. And then it's like, all right, if you can learn in public, then um, I think also like so many things just open up since from a place of learning in public in a way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, how do you feel about? I've seen a few people doing this challenge, which is speak to directly to a camera, one take for 1 minute, and post it for 30 days to get used to talking and speaking to a camera. Would you like to do that as a dip your toe in the water for podcast? Or does it feel like an unnecessary extra thing?
It doesn't feel like particularly connected to what's important. Like, I don't think I'd have a trouble rambling in front of a camera for a minute every day for 30 days. I'm not sure how interesting it would be to anyone that's listening, and I'm certainly not sure how interesting it would be for me on the rambles, right? Like, firstly, like I don't think you get that far into a ramble within for a minute anyway. I get it
Yeah,
in terms of
it's
like
true.
feeling comfortable just posting something that's out there, but um, yeah, I mean the axe that I want to sharpen is definitely like just deeper, more meaningful conversation that allow just like better way to connect and really understand someone. And I actually don't think it's through the interview process. I think the interview process can be quite confronting to a lot of people and it kind of frees up. Whereas, what we've done, like you're not interviewing me, I'm not interviewing you. We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
We've both been curious throughout the piece, and we've gone to very different ends of both of our kind of knowledge spectrum. So to me and then there's like this emergent quality of it that's quite beautiful. So
Uh,
That's the piece that I would like to practice more.
Interesting, yeah. What are those spaces that are not scripted? I think those are the most interesting spaces to explore as well.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that we haven't really talked about, we've touched on it a few times, but I quite like to talk about this setting time aside, um,
Mm.
what it actually looks like and like what the learnings have been. Because I guess like going through this process of building this lifetime reservations tool, I've started to look at and have conversations about reserving time and like kind of dive into it in a different way that I have in the past. And I don't know if that's
Mm.
the same for you. Um, but the, yeah, just like the nature of reflection has been different this year for me. Um, and I also realized that I've been doing this stuff like, I wouldn't say naturally, but I've like found a process to do it. And then we've just kind of codified it in a particular way. But like we were touching on it earlier, like everybody has their own kind of practices, or a lot of different people have their own practices. Um, and I'm curious how these, yeah, how this is falling for you.
The reservations piece in particular,
Yeah,
or
the
just
reservations.
investing time in. Well, so I mean, maybe we kind of start from the start a little bit, but yeah, I mean, firstly, like when we met, it definitely felt like there was something creative that was worth investing some time in, right? So I think you remember I kind of said, look, let's invest 8 hours together,
Yeah,
and it could be 1 hour over the next 8 weeks, and then that quickly kind of became like, well, actually, let's start building something as well. And so, like, not only just spending time together, but building something together. And we naturally started with building something for tools. And so I like the fact that we actually ended up building our tool.
yeah,
And so I think there's something around tools that is kind of in our field. Um, in terms of my relationship to time, since we've been exploring this,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, as I'm kind of writing the copy and putting the brand together around lifetime, like it just kind of a lot of it kind of dropped in, and it's hard to put like a mission statement around this, around making the most out of time without considering like, well, actually, how do you make the most out of your time, and how do you make the most out of your relationships, and um, what what is a way to ensure that you are carving enough quality time out for you and for the people that you love the most. I'm still, I don't know, I feel like my energy's been a little bit fragmented because I've been building the actual thing rather than sitting back and enjoying building the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Because I like, I'll go in and be, this thing needs to be moved here, and then da da da. Um, so as you're building the tool, sometimes you don't use the tool as much as you'd like. But
That's
yeah, I
interesting,
think
eh?
ask me a couple of weeks. I think we'll see where that's at.
Yeah, I like the I like having the tool, and I like thinking about the like the going through the process of it, but like you're right about compartmentalizing these things, that like actually working on it, and then every time I'm looking at it, I'm like looking at it with an editor's eye rather than with a like a consumer's eye, I guess.
Yeah.
um but I also realized that I have been doing this kind of time boxing thing quite naturally, or at least I heard about this concept from this guy, Jesse. What's his name? Jesse Itzler. Um, who started Marquee Jets. Anyway, he speaks a lot about life. He's got this thing called the Big Ass Calendar, which is like this huge calendar that you can visualize your whole year.
Yeah.
Um, and I really like this concept. And he also talks about this thing called Kevin's Rule, which is a friend of his, Kevin. Um, like does a mini adventure every 2 months, which is like 6 extra adventures every year. And like your life is infinitely more amazing if you have these things in your life, right? So I really like this concept of like figuring out what the things are. And I've been doing this for a few years, but always kind of doing it intuitively or naturally, or just like wanting to have a thing every couple of months. So like I've planned these things out, and then I've looked back on the year and gone, oh, I actually did like hit 6 or 7 mini adventures, but it's just because I had this like idea in the back of my mind. And I'm interested in the difference between like what it looks like to look back at something and realize that I've done it versus plan all that stuff out in advance, and like how that sits for me. Because I really like mystery. So it's like planning this stuff out is really interesting, but maybe it's enough just to make like, just to reserve the time and then not think about it too much. Um, it's like how much detail is enough detail to make sure that you're going to do the thing without actually needing to plan every piece. Which brings us back to potentially pilgrimages, some form of potential travel um, that is in a certain time period, but not necessarily defined in its goal.
All
Yeah.
right.
What'd you say?
Can
Yeah.
I have outlived my earbud battery life, so here we go. This is great. um,
Nice.
I've been thinking quite a lot about this over the years, and obviously since we've been working on Lifetime together, and I wonder how much of it actually is embedded in the invitation and in the intention versus
Mm.
the actual reservation and the booking part of it. So like my assumption is that most people would really benefit by having more creative invitations that they could share with others and that others could share with them. I think a lot of people fall into pretty standard kind of thinking and invitation for, come to a wedding, come to a bar, come to a festival, come to, a beach. Like, but, if you were to actually really dig deep what's important in your life and what would actually like deepen your relation.
Yeah.
I think I keep coming back to like what's a shared experience that you can do? What's something that you could learn together? What's something that you build together? Again, these kind of things, like it's less consumption and it's more like contribution, and those are the ones that I think that seem to be more compelling for me at
Hmm. Interesting. So
so like
how?
I'm carving out time
Yeah.
for my with my brother right now to learn how to make clothes. So like a tailoring course,
Hmm.
and it's it's something I wish we'd done 10 years ago together. You know,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
we've got a new language to work with, and then we've got a new set of tools to work with together and explore, and all of a sudden you can see this whole layer of richness emerge in a relationship rather than just same old kind of family kind of context. And that's just through
Hmm.
one week of learning something together. That could be anything. It could be a movement. It could be any number of practices. Um,
Um. So
I've also
the just
been like really interested in the like longer form, like residency program type thing. So go and do a month doing this, go and do a month doing that, as opposed to like a little side mission for 2 or 3 days, which might be nice, but maybe it's more distracting than actually really.
hmm. What form does that take? Can you just like elaborate a little bit on like this invitation part? Is it
Mm.
like instead of inviting, is it the explicit thing that you're inviting people to? So instead of inviting someone to a wedding, invite them to come and do a course with you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's just slightly more considered invitations, and
Hmm.
it's not like it has to be a specific platform, but I think it's a thought out process of let's go do this. It's far enough in the future that you probably don't have.
Yeah.
It's aligned. it's easy to do. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg. Those kind of things. But it's something that's important. Um, and
Interesting.
again,
Yeah.
it could be very outcome focused type thing. So um, I've got a friend. He's one of my first friends in Lisbon. He's a fellow urban agriculturalist, and he invited me to come spend a few days with him in France last year in the area that he grew up. And we went to this incredible space. It was this castle, this massive castle with these massive grounds. And what they've done is they've developed over the past, 10 years or whatever, um, 60 little garden plots. And then they open up it to different designers from around the world to design these little garden installations in this castle setting. So we're like, all right, well, we have to submit an application to go and do this one year because
Hmm.
what a beautiful thing to do together. And
Yeah.
like, it's like that's an invitation, right? But that's not something that just comes out of you don't just look up a blog and go, let's go do that. It takes a bit more thinking to kind of get there, and then also like, what's the bit that connects you guys in a meaningful way? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you spend the time? How do you? I was thinking about this because I was in a sauna the other day, um, which is a very typical thing for me these days. Um, but I realized that lots of people are getting involved in this stuff because it's like there it needs to be a reason to spend quality time with somebody that you can have a conversation, and that's like the main criteria. It's very simple, but in a lot of places it's like, let's go to the pub and drink. But there are lots of different, it's just being creative, right, about the ways that we spend time together. Because the core of it's exactly the same. And it's like you can have conversations over, I don't know, sitting on the floor and weaving a basket together, or you can have a
totally, yeah.
conversation over, making a cup of tea. Like it's the same thing essentially.
Mm.
Interesting. What in your last year have you been invited to that um you weren't expecting, or that was like kind of a new experience?
Well, I mean, I have an invitation, but I haven't actually been. So does that one count?
Mm. Yeah, that counts.
That counts. Okay. Well, yeah. So I was mentioning earlier on, I met this guy Rahendra Singh, and so he's invited me to come spend some time with him in India to learn more about the process of restoring rivers. And when we first met, he's like, "Your name is River?" I'm like, yes, my name's River. and it wasn't obviously just that, but like there was like there was a powerful connection. And this is a guy that, he's not all intellectual. He certainly comes from an intellectual background, but turns out he learned everything he knows about rivers through a local Indian shaman. So he's kind of like bridged both of those worlds to be able to do the work that he has over the past couple of decades. So that is an invitation I was not expecting. And I've also over the years become very sensitive to going to different places and understanding that I should be invited there. So I haven't been to India yet. I was like, I'm waiting for the invitation or the right invitation, and this was the first one that really felt like, all right, let's go.
Wow.
But
Where did you
I'm
meet?
I'm we met at a community in southern Portugal,
Cool.
Tamara. Yeah. So,
Mm.
so Tamara was having, I think it was like 30th anniversary, and because they've done a lot of work on water systems within their particular area,
Mm.
they've kind of over the 30 years they've attracted some of the most incredible kind of thought leaders around water systems, and so Rahendra was one of the guests that was there that week.
Oh, cool. Man,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Um,
So also, also being open, being receptive to invitations, that is another practice, right? Because it's so easy to be like, oh no, I couldn't possibly, like, it's way outside of, but like, no. So I think, as you open to the world opens to you. Um,
mhm.
and I've been a massive believer in that, and um, I think that, yeah, once you make those first few steps, the invitations just keep.
Yeah, absolutely. Being curious, and being curious to the point that people can, that it's palpable. Um, I remember a friend one day giving me a gift, and I was so excited because I like receiving gifts. And I was like, "What is this for?" And he was just like, "Oh, I saw it and I thought of you, and I remembered when somebody else gave you a gift and you were so excited about it." He said, "You're really easy to give gifts to because you get really excited about receiving it." And I went like, that's not intentional, but it's a very, very good. Um,
Yeah, man, being enthusiastic about life. It's such an underrated. In fact, like, there's certain cultures where enthusiasm is kind of like frowned upon, but I feel like it's such an important quality. Have
yeah,
you ever watched the film?
no,
Never watched the film.
no,
All right, well, it's a cult classic in Australia, The Castle. If you've got a like movie night with the family, I definitely recommend putting it on because you guys will just have a laugh anyway. But in this, it probably has the best dad character I've ever met. I've ever seen. I've ever met. It feels. You watch this film, you feel like you've met the guy. But it, the best dad character I've ever seen in a film. And there's this podcast series called How Other Dads Dad by this Australian comedian. And in the first episode, he actually interviews the director of this movie. And he's like, what's the defining characteristic of this father figure? Because he's so good. And he's like, yeah, I mean, he's actually based on my stepfather. And it was really like his enthusiasm for like the smallest of details. And it's such a like an important value and muscle to practice, like being
yeah,
enthusiastic. It's just so easy to be so passive about everything these days. Oh, man, that doesn't really interest me. But like, like,
yeah, yeah,
mm,
yeah, and especially,
it's a frequent.
it's a frequency. It's something that you can't fake, but it's also something that you can suppress. And I think that that is, like in a lot of cultures, like in New Zealand, it's not very cool to be really excited about things. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, oh cool." Like everyone's plays it cool. And I think this happens in a lot of places as well. But like just letting your freak flag fly, letting the enthusiasm spill out of you.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder
Yeah.
where that like. There's got to be a reason that that's such a prevalent position that so many cultures have. Like, don't show your enthusiasm. Like, you got to keep cool with things. I wonder if it's
I
a
don't know.
religious thing or maybe it's just a British thing. It's been passed down through the colonies, through
It, it
the Commonwealth.
it might be a British thing. There's a guy, his name's Gay Hendricks. He's a author, and he writes this book, The Big Leap, or I think he's written a bunch of books, but the one that I've read that I really liked is called The Big Leap. And the idea is that, like, the main idea is that humans don't know that it's okay to be happy. And things will be going well in your life, and you'll hit a happiness ceiling. And as soon as you hit that happiness ceiling, something will happen to like reset you back down to something that's safe, right?
Huh.
So you might be having the best day of your life, and all of a sudden you get a headache, or maybe you're, I don't know, making a ton of money, and then like everything falls to shit. It's like that we subconsciously don't realize that like it's fine to be happy for extended periods of time. Um, so I think it is cultural, but I also
Hmm.
think that like we internalize it as well, and we like, I think humans are quite powerful generally, and that we create all of these circumstances. Um, and like sometimes things are going really well. We go like, that's not okay because what? Someone
As
told
you're
you.
speaking it, I'm just picturing the enthusiastic caveman. And like how or the enthusiastic conqueror, or I don't know, like what are the different ancestors, and like how enthusiastic were they, and like and how has enthusiasm lasted throughout the ages?
It's true actually. You probably were a real dick if you were super like optimistic and enthusiastic when you were, I don't know, crusading across a, like you're trying to be a conqueror or being a conquered, like yeah,
Yeah, come
those
on, guys,
those
come on in.
oh yeah, welcome.
Oh, rape
Well,
and pillage, great. Yeah, well, that's all. Well, we were hoping you're going to say that. Jeez.
you've got really big sharp swords, and we don't have any. Oh, that's so cool. Like, yeah, maybe being a realist helped a lot more.
It's a wonder that enthusiasm actually lasted through the ages. I'm surprised it's a thing now. Actually, now that I think about it.
You know what? I think it's one of the main things that defines humans is hope. Like people being hopeful about things, and hope just being like, I'm sure that there are different ways to define it, right? But hope being like kind of irrational optimism, just like, oh yeah, we think it's gonna happen. Why? No reason.
No idea. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why it is. Maybe I wonder if you could. I wonder how many cultures have this thing, this like prevalence of it not being cool to be enthusiastic. Because like Americans are super enthusiastic about everything.
They are unnecessarily so. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, some cultures would say that. Yeah, but I don't know if I hear Americans say the Brits are the opposite. I would definitely like I can draw a distinction between cultures because I've lived in both countries, but
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the Brits are very reserved in their enthusiasm. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, it definitely feels like a social faux pas to be enthusiastic around the British.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, can you stop, please? So challenges. I was having this conversation with Tim, who I think you know, Kinley, and we decided that it wasn't something that we should follow through with because of the time of year and wanting to put energy into other things. But we were talking about having an awkwardness challenge. So doing
Mm.
an awkward thing each day. And then the like reward is that we got to come back and tell the story about the awkward thing that we did and how awkward it was. Um, but I really like this as like a two-part kind of challenge. One, challenging yourself to do awkward things, like say lie down in the middle of a cafe. Um, and the other part of it is maybe giving permission to other people to do the awkward thing. Like maybe I actually don't feel awkward lying down. Maybe it doesn't feel edgy to me lying down in the middle of a cafe. But if I do that and then somebody comes and asks if I'm okay and I try to convince them to lie down next to me, like what what are the things that you could do across a month, say, to expand your capacity for holding space for awkwardness?
Well, so what do you think's on the other side of
Um, acceptance, comfort. What do you think?
Because I feel like that's the real intention behind it, right? It's like, how do you create more comfort in the seemingly uncomfortable? So, like, I used
Yeah.
to um, go on dates and I'd invite like an awkward silence. So, be like, can we just do an awkward silence for a song or something? And quite often, what would happen is without language, the first few bits might be a bit awkward, but then you just kind of drop into your body and you start smiling at each other, and it's not awkward at all. Um, but it does break down one of those boundaries or barriers that you think is just naturally awkward. So definitely going directly into the awkward, I think is really powerful in some sense, and then it could just be completely random in other sense, right?
Do you think that
Like
the
I'm not
communication of it? Sorry,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
sure like the awkwardness of lying down like or planking in a restaurant. Um, although is entertaining, I'm not sure like how much anyone really gains from that display of awkwardness. Almost, it's like it's an outward display of awkwardness as opposed to just being awkward. But like the Stoics, they used to have this practice where once a month you should wear clothes that are not befitting of you, that they make you look ridiculous. And so this idea of being able to be ridiculed for ridiculous clothing is a way to insulate yourself from things that actually don't really matter. Um, so I think that if you're flexing that muscle, really powerful practice.
Interesting. Exposure therapy, essentially.
Yeah, exposure therapy for aspects of maybe conformity that aren't really serving you in a way.
Mm. Interesting. Conformity, I think we could go and do a whole 3-hour podcast on. I'm so not a fan of that saying, like, why do we do something? Oh, it's because it's always been that way.
Who would you invite to do a conformity podcast with you?
I'd want it to be somebody who, maybe it would be like a cultural historian, or I don't know. I have to noodle on this one.
Eddie Izzard comes for me.
Eddie Izzard. I don't
Yeah.
know who Eddie Izzard is.
No, all right. Well, definitely check out some of his stand-up. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's definitely one to not conform, but he's brilliant.
Excellent. Okay.
Check out Eddie Izzard.
Eddie, if you want to have a podcast, sing out.
This is how it starts, man. Well, so
shall we?
In virtue of our continued and burgeoning podcast success, I'm wondering if we should commit to or make time. Maybe we should reserve another long talk with you and I. I could definitely see this being a bit of an annual checkup, if not like quarterly. What's
Let's do it. Let's do every 6 months. How's that?
6 months? 6 months long talk. Got it.
6 months long talk. That gives us long enough to like do things, and then
Talk about
spend some time checking it. And also, it will be interesting, I think, to see the seasonality of this.
Yeah. Long talk. Long talk? Talk? Long talk. Long talk. Long talk.
Where in Bali are you now?
I'm just asking.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I haven't spent a lot of time there, but
in my little hut here, I'm like struggling to make the decision on whether or not to add windows to this or not.
Is this a hut that is rented? Is it?
No, it's a little investment my brother and I have, and it's probably one of the smallest investments you can make on the island. But it's nice because it's a Balinese, kind of Japanese inspired. This little hut, and the benefits of no windows are great because you have this fantastic view. The cons are considerable as well, though, including lots of rain, lots of insects, and lots of noise. I remember the first night I moved in here, I just heard my neighbors having sex all night, and then I woke up with the roosters, and then construction over the so.
And you're like, fuck.
My intention here was to like really have village living, so there's a part of this, but this has already been here for 20 years. So the guys that lived here before, they lived like this for the past 20 years, and still a bunch of these other villas that don't have windows. So I'm like, there's a part of me that is like, my brother's like, no, let's definitely get windows. It'll rent better and all of this. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe the fact that this doesn't have windows makes it unique. So I don't know. What do you think? What is it?
To me, the trade-off is like is no-brainer. Get windows, and it's mostly for the bugs. Like, okay, here is a really nice middle ground: is live in it for as long as you want to, with no windows, but get windows like at the end of the season or the year or whatever it is. Like, the novelty will wear off, I guarantee it. How long have you stayed there, like cumulatively in your life? Okay, it's quite a long time.
Yeah, I've been here 2 months, and there is there's some acclimatizing to happen. And I have to admit, last night when the fan wasn't working, I was like, "What the?" Like, but at the part part of it is actually living in a place and like feeling the
Mm.
different climate and all of that. And there's, I think, part of it is this tension between feeling comfortable, and then feeling kind of connected. And
Hmm.
all too often, I think in our current like modern culture, it's just like comfort. Like most people spend most of their lives within like a 4 to 6 degree temperature radius. Like it's ridiculous. Yet,
Yeah.
then we'll go to a sauna and a cold plunge for longevity's sake, and then whinge at the first time, the first bead of sweat that happens to you. Oh man! So,
Yeah.
but
I
your
kind of
vote
get
is
it.
Windows. All right, got it.
My vote's Windows. No, actually, this is what I would do if I was you. I would go and talk to other people in the village and ask them if they had the choice, would they have Windows? And if they're all like, yeah, of course, then you should get Windows. But if they're like, oh no, we prefer not having Windows because, like,
Well,
I think
I
get
have.
expert knowledge on this, you know?
So I have a little bit of actually I should do a bit more of a thorough survey. There's actually two little villages like this with exactly the same buildings. I'm in one and there's 8 little villas, and I know one of them has been windowed. I think the rest of them are still open. Um,
Interesting. Like, I'm interested in whether it's out of necessity that they don't have Windows or out of choice.
well, I mean, they were designed without windows, so now it's
Hmm.
like, is it a thing that temperaments and climates have changed enough to warrant windows? I feel like
Mm.
we can't end this on a window conversation, so give give us another
Weirdly,
thread to close us out on here, mate. Because
weirdly, I
we've
actually
actually
really
we've actually
like the
done
window thread.
we've done 3 hours. That happened quite
Nice.
effortlessly, I reckon.
I think so too. Um, what's a
Like I feel like
thread?
I could talk another 3 hours with you. Like I know we will talk another 3 hours, but um, I feel like we're only just scratching the surface.
Yeah, I think that's also the nature of these long conversations. And as we get better at this, they just like flow more.
Yeah.
Um, a thread that I think is quite interesting, and maybe the right one to end on, maybe not. Let's test it out. Is this thing that we touched on, which is like if you've got a camera pointed at you, how are you acting differently? And
Hmm.
I guess it's for me the difference between the expectation and the what we're talking about with travel. You're saying how do you manage expectation
Anticipation.
uh,
The
and
the
anticipation?
tension between anticipation and
Yeah, exactly. It's like the anticipation is the fun, the exciting. They're like, oh, this is it's the enthusiasm for the conversation,
hmm.
and then the expectation has this like constricting kind of role, which is like, if I want to say something that I don't think somebody would say in a conversation like this, I'll go, I'll pause and go like, oh, I can't actually talk about that thing because there's this weird fourth wall. Like, how do you think about that when you're listening to people talk on a podcast? Do you find that you hear people talk about things that are that you think should be outside the scope of that conversation?
I mean, the only podcast that, well, I mean, so there's two. There's like the Joe Rogan and Lex Friedman
Friedman.
are the only
Yeah.
two really long format ones that I listen to. And so Lex's podcasts are typically like field experts, so they go into a level of detail and granularity that does actually require a large amount of time. So I don't find that they stray too much. And then the
Mm,
conversations that kind of stray a bit on Joe Rogan podcast, they tend to like, I just make the whole thing more human in a way. Like even
mm,
if the content isn't relevant, it's still you're still connecting with the actual people. So for me, that's like actually really important context rather than like this is what they do or this is what they're an expert at. This is like actually who they are. So
mm.
even if you're making mistakes or saying things that aren't that interesting, there's still a level of um, resonance with it. Yeah, that's what I
Of
find.
humanness, yeah. Like even
Yeah,
if we're talking about Windows.
exactly. The real. Well, I tell you what, maybe we could kick it off. Well, whoop. I turn on my little fire light. There you go. It is time.
I still can't see you, by the way.
Well,
Yes,
and
good.
you'll actually notice this part of it. I've actually been leaning in and looking directly at the camera type thing, largely because I don't know. I'm just engrossed by the conversation, whereas before I was struggling to look at the screen.
Interesting. I think that it definitely does get easier. Um, yeah, with practice.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, with that being said, here's to more practice. I'll
To more practice. All right. Much love, dude.
see you in 6 months. Lots of luck. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.